Neo believes that Morpheus, an elusive figure considered to be the most dangerous man alive, can answer his question: what is the Matrix? Neo is contacted by Trinity, a beautiful stranger who leads him into an unknown world where he meets Morpheus. They fight a brutal battle for their lives against a cadre of viciously intelligent secret agents. It is a truth that could cost Neo something more precious than his life. But this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed, and you believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and we show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 1999's The Matrix, directed by the Watchowskis. What is going on? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are covering 1999's The Matrix. With me, the Morpheus to my Trinity, as I am self-proclaiming myself to be, Zoheb Ali. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. And back coming out of retirement, swinging for the fences, Danny Hartley. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, guys. It's good to be here.
Waking up from his eternal battery-like slumber.
Yeah.
I just got done getting all the atrophy needles removed from me. They're doing the surgery tomorrow. And then soon I'll just be left with the single plug in the back of my neck.
Hey, I mean, it looks pretty fucking cool, though. If you're going to have a plug somewhere, I mean, at least it's aesthetically cool.
How many people do you think got that as a tattoo?
Oh, dude. So many. Like, I remember us in middle school talking about getting barcode tattoos on our neck. Like, that. Yeah. This movie kicked off so much shit.
What
like
are you,
that,
like Hitman? Like fucking Agent 47?
Yeah, like Hitman. There you go. Maybe it was Hitman. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right thing. Anyways, here we are talking about The Matrix. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. This is going to be a big episode. We've been waiting to do this one for a while. If this is your first time checking out the show, look up our socials in the show notes. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. It's called The Green Room. Anybody can join. It's $5 a month. You get 2 extra episodes a month. And we also have a Breaking Bad podcast called Better Call Saul, called Bad Crystal. And we cover each episode of the show as we go through. I think we're at the end of season 3 now, I think.
Yeah, we finished season 3. All of season 1, 2, and 3 are out there now. You can go check it out. And we will be cracking on with season 4 very soon. So if you want to get into it, now's the time.
Right. And one of the things that I love about that show is I have not seen it. So Zoheb is basically like my guide, through the episodes. And I don't really know what's coming around the corner. I know the big story beats just because it's been ruined, like a lot of 20-year-old TV shows, 15-year-old TV shows. But if you want to check that out again, that's called Bad Crystal, a Breaking Bad podcast. And again, socials are in the show notes. Yeah, The Matrix, man, this has been a long time coming. Especially I did not even know. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure one of you knew that it's the 25th anniversary. I had no fucking clue. No idea.
Yeah, I saw that this week after you suggested that we cover this movie, and it was totally random and totally coincidental. The other thing that happened, I guess maybe they were waiting for the 25th anniversary, was that they announced another sequel to the movie, and that Drew Goddard will be directing it, with I think Lana Wachowski producing. So it will be the first Matrix film not directed by a Wachowski. But I'm that makes me kind of excited for it because it's sort of like fresh blood sort of thing. Like I get the same feeling of like now that Fede Alvarez is doing Alien and kind of like there's like no Ridley Scott sort of involvement at all. I kind of like the idea that there's like new blood coming into it sort of thing. So I'm excited. And Drew Goddard is a fantastic filmmaker. I mean, we raved about Cabin in the Woods, and he's a hell of a writer. Like he wrote The Martian and things like that. So he's awesome, dude. I'm really excited to see how that goes. Yeah,
I had a blast doing Cabin in the Woods. For a second there, I was getting him confused with someone else, and I could not for the life of me like get them separated. But yeah, that's really exciting. You said Fede Alvarez doing Alien. That he did the most recent Evil Dead movie, right?
That's right. Yeah, and Don't Breathe, the first one.
Oh, with Stephen Lang. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I never personally saw those, but I definitely enjoyed the buzz around them, just from what I heard from people. People were really, really, really shouting that movie out. But that's not the movie we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about a classic, a movie that's still being discussed constantly 25 years later. I gotta say, it was Danny 100%. I feel like when this movie came out, we didn't know each other yet, but I remember seeing it when I was like 9 or 10, and then not ever seeing it again. And then when I started hanging out with Danny, this and like Reloaded, I feel like we watched 4 or 5 times like growing up. So I want to start with you. What are your like memories and first impressions? Because this is definitely first and foremost a Danny movie. Like, I like this movie, but I'm probably like at least of the 3 of us in here, but I still really like it. It's just, I don't own it. I haven't watched it in years, and I know that this is definitely in Danny's wheelhouse. So yeah, what did you, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your memories?
I hate it. It's
that'd be great to be totally off.
It's impossible to go on like almost any montage of sci-fi or like a reel of movies where it just generically is showing a bunch of movies that you recognize without second guessing in your brain. Like, there's images of movies that appear that everybody just universally knows, like The Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, nobody looks at that and is like, what movie is that? Like, I feel like it's almost just sort of universally known because how well it's like maintained through time. And man, when you guys were just like, what next? We had thrown this around in the past, but I think we had just honestly, I think internally been like, maybe it's something we cover whenever we have a little bit more mileage and just feel like it's something that we have a little bit more confidence covering now. And yeah, I mean, just what better time than me purposefully choosing the 25th anniversary. I didn't know that either, by the way. I'm just bullshitting. But I was being facetious if you haven't pieced it together by now from Colin's description that I love this movie. I mean, I, like many people who saw it whenever it was in theaters, and the people that maybe are like listening to this, and maybe even you guys, like, I remember going to the theater and seeing this. I don't have that memory with every single movie, even though I know there's a lot of movies that like I saw in theaters when I was younger, but I distinctly like remember seeing this in theaters. I remember the hype of like driving back and just like envisioning the how cool it almost could be, like if you were in the Matrix. And then what better of a treat of this movie than as I get older and I'm not fucking like 9 or 10 years old, seeing this movie again, like when I'm much older, I get to see it again and have a completely different appreciation for it after seeing a bunch of fucking movies and like picking together what really makes The Matrix so good. Like when you're 9, you don't actually know why you like it so much other than the really badass scenes and just a bunch of stuff you've never seen before. You know, at least me, I can't critique a film like that at 9 years old, right? So, and like even
very surface level stuff, yeah.
Like even now, like it's not like I'm like some fucking professional at it, but at least as an adult, I can recognize like, whoa, the audio in this movie. We've talked about audio being a character in a movie, but fuck, if the audio team did not come clocked in for The Matrix, this movie would have been lame as fuck. It would have been super cheesy, dude.
Real quick, this is going to be such a nerdy question. What are your favorite audio moments in this movie? Because I have one.
I already have it.
Easy. I have multiple, but there's one that stands above the rest, and do you want me to wait, or when we get to that moment?
Let's do it. So I'll start with mine. Mine has to be the sound of them shooting the Desert Eagles in slow motion, like the sound of the Desert Eagles. Yeah, it's incredible. Anyway, Danny, you go.
When he is sitting in the chair and they finally got him on the bandwagon to come out of the Matrix, and he pokes the mirror and he pulls his hand back and it goes down his throat.
Yes.
There's even an
the digital scream.
Yeah, like there's even there's even a Linkin Park. It's like leaned heavily into that sample, and if you listen to their album Meteora, there's tracks on there that use that same effect. Specifically the end of Session, you'll hear that same exact Matrix drowning in like the dial tone, like effect. I don't even know what to fucking call
Rest
it.
in
But
peace, Chester.
yeah, rest in peace, Chester. Fuck yeah.
Right.
Dude, easy answer for my favorite sound in that movie, but there's a lot. And it doesn't end there. Like, as an adult, I'm reappreciating how fucking badass the audio is. That we can have a discussion about our favorite audio bit out of that movie just says enough about that as it is. There's so many incredible shots that are in the movie. There's one or two that I actually, now looking back on it, I'm like, ooh, that actually does not look good. But there are so fucking many that outweigh that it just doesn't make a fucking difference. Love how slimy of a bad guy that Cypher is in that. Does such a killer job. And
not like this.
Not like this. Stone falls on the fucking ground. Yeah, it's just gruesome, man. Just realizing these people that you've worked hand and foot with, like, I don't even know if that's the way you fucking say that, but I'm rolling with it. But like these people that you've like worked day and night with and like have toiled in this post society, and then you have to just sit there over the phone and murder them one by one. That's just, dude, and that's not even the worst shit that he does, man. He's just shooting tank while his back's turned to him. Just, it's all fucked up, man. We'll get into the specifics, but you can tell that I clearly don't hate it, and I'm excited to see why you guys. There's always this part of me that gets caught off guard by us going through it and somebody being like, this movie kind of blows. I'm like, oh damn, I didn't know that. Hope that's not the case with either two of us, either the rest of us, either two of you that are about to go. But Colin, are you on board with this? Which pill did you take? The blue pill or the red pill?
I took both. Wild card, bitches. No.
Yes.
Wild card, bitches.
Yeah. I cracked both the pills open, mixed them together, and snorted it. That's what I did. No,
he died immediately.
I really do. Yeah, I became the Matrix. No, I really enjoy this movie. I was also going to say my favorite audio thing is 100% the him becoming the Silver Surfer, basically. Like, I love that. Like that digital noise going. Oh, it's so good, man. I remember the biggest thing I remember about this movie is like I didn't catch it until, I don't know, like maybe a year or two after it came out, but the pandemonium around this movie at the time was absolutely massive. Those sunglasses that the agents wore, even I had a knockoff pair of those. Like everybody had a pair of those lying around the house. Like they made those extremely popular.
All your nerdy neighbor kids had trench coats too.
Yeah.
Trench coats.
the all black leather, the trench coats and stuff. And I think this is a movie that I don't really feel the need to watch all the time, but whenever I do watch it, I have a fun time watching it. I couldn't honestly tell you what this movie is like about, like, what is the Matrix trying to say, and there's I think 1,000 different ways that can go, but it's just such a big piece of, you want to say it's a 90s movie. Technically it is, but when I think of the Matrix, I don't think the 90s. I think the 2000, 2001, like whenever it got absolutely huge. But I think it's a landmark sci-fi film. And, I think a lot of this movie is a bit of style over like substance. Like when it comes to like the story and stuff like that, it's a story that's been told 1,000. There's a chosen one and he gets taken by these guys. It's a story that's as old as, time, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's a brilliant visual film wrapped around like the hero's journey kind of movie. I think that, maybe you don't like some of the performances, maybe you don't like some of this, but you can't fuck around with the fact that it was like visually an extremely important movie when it came out. And then you started getting stuff like this and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And like, how many spoofs of this movie have you seen in like Scary Movie or on a TV show? And it's like, dude, this movie has Spaced, one of my favorite TV shows of all time, the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Jessica Stevenson one. That has a whole episode with two agents in it. Like it was massive when it came out. And I don't think that can be like understated. Like this movie is I can't think of another movie that had come out to this point where it's like, no, what you're living in is basically a simulation, and you're plugged up somewhere else. And now, I mean, look at the effect that this movie has had on just pop culture and society as a whole, where like the Matrix is a thing that like Andrew Tate talks about, and like people talk about, man, he's just a blue pill motherfucker. Like this movie has like lasted in the public conscious for a long time.
Yeah, Dax Shepard talks about that on his podcast a lot. Armchair Expert. He doesn't particularly call it the Matrix, but they always talk about like the simulation effect, like that. Like these little coincidences that just line up, and maybe we are in a simulation and things like that. And I kind of looked it up. It's like called the simulation hypothesis, and obviously, like all of that like existed before this movie. But I think it's fair to say that this movie made that idea really popular. Like to the extent that people actually believed that they were in some kind of simulation or some kind of matrix, and that their reality was not was not what it was actually. Which is
that Truman Show effect?
Yeah, the Truman Show effect. But like not only that, it's spawned like this like new strand of like conspiracy theory kind of like element. And, I think, living in 2024 post-COVID, where conspiracy theories just absolutely run wild, this movie was so ahead of its time in just like that element, but also the artificial intelligence conversation as well. Sorry, yeah, go on. I'm just kind of like hijacking your thoughts here, but yeah, the simulation theory is absolutely wild.
Yeah, and I think that, it's an absolutely monumental movie, and it came out, I think, at the perfect time. I think this movie, if it had come out in the 80s, it probably, would have still been big. If it came out in 2010, it would have gotten lost in the whole thing of like 2010 sci-fi movies, but it landed perfectly at that time. That like, this and like The Phantom Menace coming out in the same year is like, oh, like that's good. That's 9-year-old me is shitting the bed. There's not really a negative thing that I have to say super about the movie. Like, I think visually it's very striking. I like all the performances in it. The story is just kind of, that's cool. Like, I don't watch this movie for the story, kind of thing. And I think it's cool. I like the world building in it, how detailed they make, and you're like, what does that thing do? Like when they're plugging him into or plugging him out of the Matrix, and they take the phone off the hook and put it on that machine. And I'm like, what is going on, man? Like, I want to know what the fuck everything that you're touching does, because I think it's so fucking cool. It's like the what we just talked about in Blade Runner with the test that they use for replicants,
the void comp test, yeah.
The void comp, thank you. And it's like, yes, that's what I want to know, what every bit of that does, because I think it's so fucking interesting. It's cool looking. The song also, has a really, really excellent Dragula remix in the club. I love that. I fucking love Dragula as a song. Like, it's very nostalgic. But yeah, I think this is a great movie. I'm glad we're covering it. I think it's been, a long time coming, as I've said multiple times already, and I hope the listeners are excited to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, anyways, guys, we started. No,
I fucking knew it. I do. You're a great host, Colin. Anyway, he's only been doing this for 6 years, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so obviously I love this movie. I mean, what else? What else can you say? I guess like for the last 3 episodes of this show, because we've been covering such big movies that are just have been in the zeitgeist for so long, and have been covered by every podcast, every show, whatever, for so fucking long. I kind of want to like just break in at the top here and just kind of like be like, look, like we probably will talk about trivia, but that's not really our game. I guarantee you, trivia for this movie has been covered extensively and in a much better way on other shows. Like I said in the last episode, you're not really here to learn. We're just 3 fucking, dickheads who are just gonna be talking about this movie and stumbling through it. So, I want to make that clear. But like, also, yeah, like, man, like I don't really know what else to say. I think this movie is outstanding. I do come to this movie for story. I think the story here is incredibly rich. Like, not just like I do have a. It's been a minute since I've watched it, and sitting down and watching it last night. I'm just like, there are a couple things that I kind of bump up against, which I'll raise when we get to them. But like the way that it's all done, the way that you're fed the information that you're fed, and how succinctly they do it. Like when Morpheus is going through the Matrix and the real world with Neo and how the real world came to be, it's done in such a little like sort of like compressed way. Like it's just basically a line and you're like, oh, this is what probably happened. You know what I mean? Like the way that they feed us this huge exposition dump after Neo takes red pill is just like, my God, this is how you do exposition. Like, you know, I know that like the movie like takes like a 10-minute sort of like, let's pause, pump the brakes for a second, which it kind of really absolutely needs to do, because the audience for the first like maybe 25 minutes is just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Until Morpheus gives Neo that exposition dump, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, right, like let's go, like tell us what the answers are. But the way that it's done is like, man, like they're answering the questions in such a compressed and succinct way that it's just so like, I get it. I get why we're here. I get why we're doing what we're doing. I get what the stakes are. I get why things look the way they do. And it's genius, to be quite honest. I think the Wachowskis are so very talented, but I don't think they, in their career, reached the heights that they did here with this movie. I think the second one is good. I don't think it's incredible. I mean, like that was one of my earliest memories of being in a cinema with my dad and watching that movie and being like, holy shit, this is absolutely amazing. I was 10 years old. Watching that freeway chase was absolutely mind-boggling to me, and at that age. But I also remember that being one of the first like cliffhanger endings that I watched. And I remember being like to my dad, I was like, what the hell does to be continued mean? And Matrix Revolutions to me is not that good. I don't think I've seen it that many times. I think I've seen it like maybe twice in my life. Resurrections, I don't think is a good movie at all. But that might be because I watched that once and it was during the pandemic and I watched it at home or didn't watch the movies or anything like that. So I was kind of like distracted. But I think this is a fantastic movie, man, and I think it gets into a lot of philosophical questions and ideas and concepts that can only be done in science fiction, really. Like, I think it uses the genre to its benefit, and it really bends the genre to its maximum limits to be able to tell a story that can almost exclusively be told in this genre, which I'm really excited to talk about. Obviously, the cast is incredible. The cinematography by Bill Pope, who went on to do Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, and he's done a couple of Marvel movies as well. Shang-Chi is incredible as well. The music as well by Don Davis, I really want to shout out, because there is some, particularly when we're in the train station fight, I'm just like, man, like Davis is going absolutely ham with the music here, and I just love it. It's just in my head when, you know, when Agent Smith throws that punch and like he kind of like gets up and like you just know what's happening in terms of like audio. But yeah, man, like we've never seen action like this before this movie. It's like even just the way that things are shot. I mean, obviously the bullet time sequence with its 120 cameras just all set off like within seconds of each other, practically done, almost all in camera. Obviously there's some CG work, is just so innovative and just like mind blowing. It's like, how did you even think of that? But yeah, man, like I know what you're saying, Colin. Like it is one of those sort of like standard, The Chosen One kind of movies, and like. Right. There was a lot of these coming out at this time in particular. So obviously you had this, you had the Harry Potter series, you had Star Wars as well, which deals with the Chosen One, Terminator to an extent as well. You know, like the destiny versus like you know, your own free will,
right?
Which I kind of want to get into a little bit as well. Like, you know, whether whether there is a prophecy or whether knowing your knowledge about that prophecy influences your actions to rise above and become a leader. Like, like I love that kind of shit. And I really want to chat about that when we do get to it.
What's really going to make your noodle later on is, would you have still broken it if I hadn't said anything? That's almost kind of like what you're saying right there, the whole like broken vase thing.
Exactly. Well, I've been thinking about it a lot because we're recording this right after Dune Part 2 has just come out. And that deals a lot with like fake or implanted destiny and whether you want to follow that path or whether you want to be something else. And I think like watching The Matrix so soon after Dune is so crazy. But also, you can obviously see Christopher Nolan's inspiration from Inception, which he's talked about as well. Yeah, man, like this is a banger of a movie. I mean, like it's kind of overwhelming to be talking about it because it's just been lingering in the background of our sort of like psyche or like for so long. So I'm really keen to get into it, man.
Can I redo my intro? I feel like Zoheb said it so much better than I like said what was on my mind and so much better, man. No, really well said. So many things going on in this movie that's worth complimenting: the cinematography, the audio, how everybody shows up, the lore building. Man, just the way that you get sucked into the universe, like you feel like you're in this desolate world when you're unplugged, and you feel like you're in this digital world when you're plugged in, just by the way that it's like the way they tint the screen, and it's just little things like that you would come to just learn as like the Matrix look. Man, I'm excited for us to be talking about this today. Hell yeah.
It's so good. Oh, and one more thing. Almost exclusively shot in Sydney, which is wild, man.
God.
Like when they are,
all right, let's go, guys.
When they are in the when they're at the fountain, and he sees the red woman. I'm not even kidding. My workplace is 10 meters to the left. It's
sick.
crazy.
Oh, nice.
It's so insane. Like, which is kind of like another extra meta thing because, like, when you watch The Matrix. And you're seeing that Sydney is the Matrix. It's just so like, am I literally in the Matrix, dude? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you just start killing like people around you just to test it out.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh shit, that didn't work.
In the back of my brain, I had wondered what those buildings correlated to. I guess I never really looked up what city that was shot in. Interesting. Now I know it's Sydney. That's sick.
Yeah.
Well, all right. With that out of the way, let's jump right into this bitch. I do love the beginning of this movie. I think it starts off incredibly well with like, and just to kind of take this section as like a whole of like the phone call and then her fighting the cops and jumping over the lift, like that whole thing is like, what a hook, like right out of the gate to get people like, so there's this hot ass woman in skin tight fucking leather kicking the shit out of these cops and like defying gravity and shit. And it's like, yeah, that's a good way to get people hooked like immediately on your movie. What did you guys think about the opening of this movie?
It was cool to try and pick up on when Cypher is betraying them. Like the first lines of the movie where you're seeing the text come down and they're talking. You can even hear her go, "Is this line tapped?" And he's like, "No, of course I'm sure it's fine." But like clearly later in the movie, you're like, "Oh, like he was probably actually having this entire fucking line tapped the whole time." Like it's cool to pick up in pieces like that. But dude, what do you think everybody's look on their face was? I'm sure they had kind of gotten a hint from it from maybe trailers or what people had mentioned at the time. But when everything pauses and the camera swaps from one side of the room to the other when she jumps up to kick that cop, you immediately are like, what in the actual fuck is this? Back in the 90s at the least. So, dude, yeah. Immediate way to get sucked in. I could go on and on probably about this shit, man.
It's incredible, man. Like it was so innovative for its time, but like not only that, Colin, like you mentioned, it's been aped in so many things. Like this was even in Shrek. Do you remember this in Shrek?
Oh yeah.
When she's fighting when she's fighting is a Robin Hood's like kind of like henchman, and she like does the jump and the splits. I mean, like it was in everything, but like. This is obviously, we're kind of like seeing like the kind of action that we're about to be exposed to for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is like this sort of like inspiration from Hong Kong action cinema sort of like thing. Like I know that they brought in this choreographer, I'm going to read his name and I'm going to butcher it, Yon Wu Ping. And he worked on like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like later.
Oh,
But
of course.
like, yeah, it was just so different to see in these like Hollywood movies like that. But like I remember being younger and watching this on video, because obviously we had this on video, and watching it with my dad and being like, man, like the way that the hand-to-hand sequences are filmed, it's so pulled back. Like you see every kind of like movement, and whether like that's a detriment or a positive is, up to you, because I think when we were watching it was around the time of Bourne, and Bourne was like it's a whole new thing. Like you kind of like getting quick cuts and zoom ins on wrists and things flying everywhere. Whereas this is more sort of like measured and more thought out, but it's slower. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of like depends on what you really want out of an action movie. But this is yeah, man, what an absolute banger intro. There's another one in Matrix Reloaded, which I think is great too, with Trinity, where like the way it opens that movie with like the motorcycle, and she's kind of like flying out the window, like shooting the guns up in the air. I get these two confused, like the two openings.
They give Trinity, as I rewatched this today, the best, I think, moments in the movie. Like the coolest choreography between everybody else. She kind of has some of like, if you could unlock some of the things that she does as like an character animation in a game, I feel like hers would be the most popular. Like her jumping up and kicking somebody, or the way that she grabs onto the rope and jumps out of the helicopter near the end so that she doesn't get like absorbed into that whole explosion. Like they give her some cool ass moves in this whole fucking movie. I think she's kind of like,
Speaking of a game, did you guys ever play The Path of Neo?
No.
Am I getting that confused with Enter the Matrix?
Yeah, Enter the Matrix was different,
Okay.
but there was another game on PlayStation 2 called The Matrix Path of Neo, which was awesome, dude. It was so good.
That's cool. No, I didn't. I wasn't a PlayStation person growing up.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, and absolutely fantastic, opening sequence, and I like when I like it in small spurts, but when they're talking about like, oh no, she's incredibly dangerous, like all your men are probably already dead, like we're setting up that kind of like stage, and then her actually like doing these, like reality defining things of like jumping that gap and like pausing in the air and running in the corner of the wall. I think that's absolutely incredible. And the
but even without like the sorry to interrupt, Colin.
No.
Even without like the technical things that we can mention, like there's so much storytelling going on in this first like 5 minutes. Like when she like gets on the phone and she's like, are there any agents? And it's like, okay, who are the agents and why are we afraid of them? You know what I mean? Like there's so much. This is what's good about a good action movie, is like it tells you things.
I thought you said Asians, like your accent for a second. And I was like, she doesn't say anything about Asians. Like it took me a second and I was like, no, I think there's a lot of the mystery is set up like right away. And you're like, all right, who are these people on the line and what is going on? Like blah, blah, blah. And I mean, how many hearts did Carrie-Anne Moss break when this movie came out? Like, dude, she is like at 9-10 years old. I was like, oh, I would marry that woman. But dear God, like she is poured into that leather. She looks amazing. And I mean, she and Keanu Reeves both. Like, I feel like for her, this was definitely like not that first big like break. I feel like she'd probably acted before this, but I can't think of any of her earlier stuff before this. I'm sure she worked, and same thing for Keanu Reeves. Like, he had Speed and like Bram Stoker Dracula and Point Break. Like he had
Interview with the Vampire.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
he was huge.
Yeah, he had like absolutely wait, is he in Interview with the Vampire? Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
Man, I haven't seen
that movie
in ages. Or Asians.
No, sorry. I got mixed up with Dracula. My bad.
That's what I was like, wait a minute. I don't think he's in that. No, you're good.
Sorry.
I'm sitting here nodding my head. I'm like, he's in one of the vampire movies.
He's in some 90s vampire movie. But obviously he'd had huge roles before this, but I think this was when it was like, okay, you are absolutely this is probably the biggest movie he ever made, besides like the John Wick movies coming out now. Like I think this is what cemented him as like, okay, like, yeah, he's been acting for a little while, but this is like legacy status movie this is his, James Bond to Sean Connery kind of. Speaking of which, he got offered Morpheus twice and said no, and just didn't understand the movie. And I think it was the same thing for Will Smith.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up.
Do you know what Will Smith chose to do instead of this movie?
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Wild Wild West.
I knew it.
What? He's not in the League, Will Smith?
Oh, I thought you were asking about Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
I didn't hear the Will Smith part.
So, Will Smith chose to do Wild Wild West. Another Joel Silver movie. That one actually featuring a giant fucking spider.
Yeah. That whole story is fucking crazy with Kevin Smith and that whole thing. But yeah, absolutely, like, groundbreaking sequence, immediately grabs you by the shoulders and lets you know what kind of movie you're in for. And I love the constant use of that green hue through the whole movie. Like when they're in the Matrix, it just has that look to it, and when they're outside of it, not so much. But this whole
it's
thing,
just like blue and cold,
yes.
like when they're in the real world.
Dude, I'll be the interiors of this apartment building are like, or whatever building they're in, it's David Fincher-esque. Like, it's very like dark. Them coming in with the guns and the lights and stuff, I immediately was thinking of Seven. Great pull. Yeah. So. But she makes that absolutely insane leap. I love her jump, but when the agent lands and it's like that sound, the sound of him landing is like, ooh, shit! That's a big dude. It looks
like a unit is landed on that. It's not just like a person. It looks like a tank is landed there, like a program. It's crazy,
like an ODST fucking dropping in.
I love that we're introduced to the abilities of the agents in this moment. Well, in these opening 10 minutes, but like not really like how it's done. So like even like when he commandeers the truck. Right, we don't see him taking control of the truck driver like we would like later in the movie. Like we just see the truck turn around, and like it's just like seeding these little like, what the hell happened there? How did that guy end up in the truck? We just saw him on the rooftop. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, and it's all stuff that like you take for granted on your 20th watch of it, but at the time you've got to be like, whoa. They had a guy in a garbage truck. Like what? Like it's kind of, it definitely breaks your brain a little bit on a first watch. And I can't get over like her spiraling into it looks terrible. Like it doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good.
But it's okay because it's immediately followed up with her hitting her back and like guns akimbo immediately to that window, and I was like, yes. Like, I love it. I do love that. That is so good.
But the look on her face sells that moment because it's just like there's fear there. You know, there's like a little hint of fear about what's going to come through that window.
That was her and Joey Pants both in Memento, right? Aren't they both in Memento?
Yep.
That's right. I was like, wait, she's not in Memento, is she? My brain just would not figure it out. But yeah, absolutely stellar opening sequence. I love the way that it, goes from this rooftop chase scene to her finally getting on the ground and the phone thing and her putting her hand on the glass. And that is burned into my memory of her just like putting her hand up as the truck runs her over. And at first, I'm sure as a kid, I was like, oh, she's going to move the truck or something. You know, I probably thought something fucking stupid like a kid. But yeah, the like seeing that they're not like, oh, we're going to like arrest you and take you in, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, they'll run you over at a garbage truck. And I was like, okay, something's up here. These guys are not like a federal bureau or something like that's kind of crazy.
They're carrying Desert Eagles as standard issue service weapons.
Right. And they're jumping across these rooftops like it's fucking insane.
And they're looking at each other's
they're
ears.
finishing each other's like sentences. like they're in like the hardest like threesome relationship because they're at that level of like, you know. But yeah, like they also, reveal that they have an informant. The informant is real.
Yes. I was just because Danny was talking about rewatching it and seeing the seeds of like Cypher betraying everybody. And I love that they're like, okay, well, at least we know he's legit.
Yeah, the opening dialogue, you pick up her even questioning if the line's secure, and just immediately, when I recognized that it was Cypher on the call, it dawned on me that I was like, man, he was probably planting it all along. from this early on, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you're not going to be left in the dark as to whose voice that is, because Joey Pants has the most recognizable voice on the planet, you know.
Right. And but again, killer opening scene. We cut to Neo asleep at his desk. Again, I love this kind of just this kind of green, just dirty Gotham looking esque like kind of place he lives in. Wakes up to the computer talking to him, telling him to follow the White Rabbit, and we get a knock at the door. We see, so he's selling like just computer programs, or he's selling what exactly is it that he sells? Because they say like he breaks every computer law. It's like, so he produces child, and like, does he produce and distribute child pornography? Like, like what the fuck is going on? Like, what are the computer laws that he's breaking?
Yeah, look, I just kind of like chalk it up to he's just selling information because he's a hacker, or he's able to acquire information. So maybe like he's got clients who like, it's kind of like I don't ask any questions kind of like type deal or something like that. I just do it for the money, but like, I don't know. All I do know is that he's giving the information out on floppy disks. So the information, there can't be a lot of information that he's giving out. I mean, like those things carry like kilobytes of information.
Yeah, max like 17 pictures on there. So maybe 18. Not that I know or anything. Just
Damn, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, no, nothing about that. Yeah. So we see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What's interesting is, I kind of like picked it up on this viewing, and I did a little bit of research on it. Not really research, just Googling is the full extent of my research. But when he goes to get the hard drive or the floppy disk from the book, the chapter that he opens the book on, and like the title of the book is called Simulacra and Simulation. And the chapter of the book is titled On Nihilism. And nihilism is, quote, extreme skepticism maintaining that nothing in the world has a real existence.
Man, there is something in the back of my brain that knew you were going to talk about this book as I rewatched this today, and I'm not making that up. Please keep going. This is perfect.
Yeah, no, like that's pretty much it. Like it's just like there's like little seeds about questioning reality in the Matrix, and I wonder if it's like, because like later we find out about the architect, there's no mention of the architect in this particular movie, so it's kind of like like I wonder, because this is like this is the 6th version of the Matrix, isn't that right? Like,
yeah,
they mentioned that in Reloaded or Revolutions. And like that's all kind of like seeded to us. It's teased in like that conversation in the skyscraper with Agent Smith and Morpheus. Like, like Smith is like, oh, like we built the first one as like a paradise, but you guys didn't take to it because you guys are beasts and, you just wanted violence. But I wonder if by the time they get to this 6th version of the Matrix, that the machines were like, let's seed some conspiracy ideas in there about like their reality not being a reality, because their intelligence is like that, like they want to feed their intelligence somehow, or they want to make it feel like they're not real, something like that. I was just thinking about like why this book would be here in the story of the movie, but maybe it's just a little I don't know.
No, I started playing a new game today called Control. It's on Xbox Game Pass right now. It's a fun game, but that whole thing is about a federal bureau of. It's called the Federal Bureau of Control, and they have like these crazy events. It's very, very fun. It's like hardcore sci-fi game to play, but it's kind of like that. Like they plant little things to make people like have like seeds of doubt, but they're not looking at the right thing. They plant it over here, so they're looking at that, and it's like, oh, okay, it's distraction. But I tell you what, he doesn't get distracted by is what he does get distracted by is the White Rabbit. Decides to follow this group to the club. We get a great version of Dracula, which I love. Zoheb, have you seen Shane Gillis singing this at a karaoke? Him singing fucking Dracula. It's hilarious, dude. Like Danny, I don't know if you know who Shane Gillis is, the comedian. He's really funny. But him singing this, and it actually works. Like he does it actually pretty well. That's the funny part.
That's awesome.
Did
you catch like the like just what they're wearing and like what they're kind of like dressed up in? Like the guys at the door, like there's that one woman on that guy's like right shoulder who's kind of like got that like jewelry going up to her nose from her ear. It's like, what? I mean, like I understand that this is the Matrix, but like what? What kind of like fucking weird reality are we living in here? Like, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Again, this place could be like Gotham. You know, I'd be like, what is going on here? Is this like the Penguin's like iceberg lounge?
Iceberg Lounge, yeah.
But Trinity confronts Neo. Took me forever to realize Neo is just an anagram of one. I was like, oh my god, like I'm fucking such an idiot. And there's a lot of cool stuff. Go ahead. A
name that he chose, interestingly.
Yeah.
Because his name is what, like something Anderson, right?
Thomas.
But
Anderson.
that was the name, Thomas Anderson. But that was the name that was given to him in the Matrix. Instead, he chose the name Neo as like sort of like his hacker,
his moniker,
alter ego. Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool stuff with the names in this movie as well. With like Morpheus was like the god of dreams or something, and Trinity obviously like Christianity, and Neo
Zion
is like new and Zion right.
being their hometown.
What is the ship called, Danny? What is it called?
The Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, another biblical name.
Switch is an interesting name and character because I think there's like some rumors out there. Like I was on Reddit like deep last night after this movie. And I think there was like a script sort of like some people got it in their heads. I don't know what kind of like basis there is for like this, but some people got it into their heads that they're because the Watchowskis transitioned, right, obviously, and Switch was supposed to be a character that transitioned, in The Matrix was a female, but in reality was a male, and like that's why they kind of like called her Switch. And this Reddit poster was like, the studio didn't want that in there, like they kind of, because obviously it's 1999 and that kind of idea in cinema really hasn't been put forward yet, so wasn't that popular.
People are debating about it now. Imagine how bad it was in 99. Yeah.
Right. But like I don't have any basis for that, but that is an interesting idea to think about, because Switch, even like watching it last night, Steph was like, is that a guy or a girl? And I'm like, I know it's a girl, but it's interesting that you asked me that, because she didn't
very androgynous.
Right. She didn't know at that point that the Wachowskis had transitioned. Like, that was something that I told her after the movie kind of thing. But I kind of wonder if that's something that came into the fold or into the script based on where they were in their personal lives or where their mindset was.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting, like, foreshadowing of where their, like, personal lives would go in the future and stuff. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. I tell you, you dye Switch's hair red, she's fucking LaRue. She is LaRue. I'm going in for the kill. I'm doing it for the thrill. That whole album is fucking killer. I love that album. But Trinity confronts him at the club. Basically, is saying that she's the hacker. She hacked the IRS database. Tells him it was a long time ago, and she's come to warn him he's in danger. That they're watching him, and that she knows that he is searching for answers, particularly to what is the Matrix. I love the transition of the beat. Like going into the alarm clock, I really, really, really like the way that transitions over. A short scene, but a necessary one. And I like the fact that she she plugged out and was like, all right, I got to go back in. I got to find this fucking dude. And it's like the same. It's like 10 minutes later. They're like, we just ran her over with the truck and she's back. Like, what the fuck? And we see that Neo, Thomas Anderson, whatever. And that's another like Christian reference of doubting Thomas, like one of the, I think he's one of the apostles. Or it might have been one of the Beatles. I can't remember. But the
religion and the Beatles get so intertwined.
This is us trying to do religion. This is us trying to do religion right now. But because I know you're about to transition to the office building, and I'm sorry, this might happen, but man, when he's looking out the window wipers, it is so surreal that because there's a bridge you can see in the background. It's called the Anzac Bridge. It's named after our Australia, New Zealand, Army Corps, like they fought in
Anzac Day.
Gallipoli. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Fuck, I didn't know you knew that. Well done.
Yeah.
That bridge, it's so crazy because you drive over it to get into the city. I've driven over it like millions of times. It's just so surreal to see in like a movie like this.
I can imagine, yeah.
Fuck. Like, doesn't happen a lot, I'm telling you.
Well, it'd be like me and Danny seeing our hometown in the background and be like, what the fuck is that? Is that Triple Creek? Like,
right.
What the fuck? Like,
now I know how people feel who live in New York who are like, that's the Brooklyn Bridge, baby. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only time that our town is featured in videos that we recognize it as like, how not to do meth. And then it shows you like footage of somebody.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, hey, I know that alleyway. So I get my meth
it's
there.
like I've seen 2 or 3 of them that popped up in a true crime documentary, and I'm like, oh, that's good. That's a good look for our small town.
That's helping you rep. Yeah,
this person's been missing for 9 years.
I did learn at one point that somebody that was on the top 10 most wanted list was found in Shady Cove, and Colin knows where that is. So
that's hilarious.
That really goes to make you think like, that is middle of fucking nowhere, like 3 or 4
that's
minutes
super
down
close to where you
from my fucking house, and somebody that like evaded the FBI for a long time was found there. So like that goes to show you it's crazy.
Can you imagine, like, figuring out that the Matrix is like this construct that was designed to sort of like keep us in check, and you're a fucking homeless person, or just like what kind of like luck of the draw kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah, I really got fucked on the cosplay here, man. Like this sucks. But Neo ends up being late for work. He gets scolded by his boss. He tells him that there are, basically 2 choices for him. Some interesting foreshadowing. Going to be alluding to what we're coming up to next. And he basically bitches him out for being late. And I like the fact that all he's saying is like, you think that you are special, like blah blah blah, and he's wrong. Like he's the one. Like he's like the most special person in the fucking world. I love that. And the cool thing about the boss is that like if you just put a pair of sunglasses on him, he's a fucking agent.
Oh yeah.
When I was younger, there was a period of time where I couldn't tell if he was the same character or not, and he was just a bad guy later. But that was like, you're 9 or whatever, 10 watching this movie the first time, and you can't go back and rewatch it immediately.
Right. He gets the phone delivered to him. He basically it immediately rings, and Morpheus is calling him, telling him that he's run out of time, that they're coming for him. He's like, who's they? He's like, why don't you look up? And sees them at the elevator. He's like, oh, fuck. Tries to make a break for it, goes out onto the scaffolding and just can't fucking do it, which I love. I love the fact that I feel like a lot of other movies he would have made it and there would have been another. And it's like, no, we just did that. We just did that. Like, let's set some ground rules because we're trying to, this is a very like high concept sci-fi film or just film in general, and it's like, okay, we've hit them with a lot of action, with a lot of like, okay, how the fuck, like, now we have to start answering some questions, or at least drip feeding.
They flip his whole world upside down like very slowly through this whole movie, right? And they have to do it in pieces that it's like believable. In rewatching this, you realize they have to pull him into this a little bit. Like, they do give him the choice, and he does make the choice himself. But like, he wakes up realizing that the world is gone, and they have to kind of like get him to kind of come to and get his bearings straight. Like, there's several times where he goes to open the door and she's like, hey, like, you've been down that road before, you know where it leads. It's like, there's several times where, I'm really disagreeing with you, Colin, in a roundabout way, is that I love that it wasn't just like, all right, go to the building, get on the scaffold. And he's like, okay, I'm there. It was like, no, right. I don't think I can do this. And then even later, as they're giving him options, he's kind of like, not totally on board with it. It doesn't make it just a slam dunk. It's cool
Doubting
to see
Thomas.
him getting convinced, getting like, absorbed into the Matrix. What do you think, Zohab?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it gives him like a little bit of like, like for him to decide like, oh shit, I'm not going to go through with this. Like, also it gives him a little, like, gives the Matrix, quote unquote, this simulation more of like a we can see the Matrix at work here, like a sort of like a compliance thing, because he decides not to go through with this kind of like walking on the edge of the building and ends up in the hands of the agents. And it's like, oh, okay, like this is the Matrix at work here. Like, you know, this fear of like falling to your death is like it worked, even though it's not real. It's
Right.
yeah, it's good stuff. One of my favorite shots here is here actually. It's Trinity kind of like on the bike, looking in her like rearview mirror. It's like he's kind of like being hauled off, and it's in like this slow motion. It looks gorgeous, dude. It's a gorgeous shot.
Right afterwards, it clips to several like CCTV that's monitoring him. And it kind of dawned on me afterwards that it would be interesting if that was from the perspective of the architect's room.
The architect? Yeah, I thought about that too.
That's cool.
No.
Ergo, concordingly, vis-a-vis. All I can think of when I think of the Matrix Reloaded is
the
the
Will Ferrell
MTV
cover.
Movie Awards. Yes, that is so fucking funny, dude. I still go back and watch that every now and then just to get a chuckle.
Andy Dick going, Morpheus, what can we expect at this orgy? Machines.
We
Andy Dick. Whew.
we need to lay some respect on fucking Hugo Weaving, dude.
Yeah.
Kills
This
it.
is so he spends a lot of time in Sydney, obviously, and my mate was in the city just like on a crosswalk one day, like, you know, he was just waiting for a red light. And literally he looked to his left and fucking Hugo Weaving standing right next to him with like a full on beard and shit. And he got a photo with him, and I'm like, I'm so jealous, man. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Weaving, this was kind of like his era, right? I mean, like Lord of the Rings was around this time as well.
V for Vendetta.
This is
a little
when
around
he
the
ate.
time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, what else? I mean, because I know he did this, and then he did, I feel like there was something else that he was in around this time that I can't put I know Captain America wasn't until like 2011, so I can't put my finger on what else he was in. Speaking of fingers, I love that I give you the finger. Neo's
So
response
good,
to
dude.
it. I wish there was a movie where him and like Sam Neill were brothers. I feel like him and Sam Neill would do really, really good in a movie together. And he's just, I mean, God, he nails that performance of like almost a Terminator, but like kind of like a condescending Terminator, like in a way, like he's always got that smug, like when you see him start to fear towards the end of the movie, it's so satisfying because he has been this arrogant fucking like gas bag this whole time, and to see him kind of get his ass whooped a little bit is like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's like seeing Freddy Krueger get scared. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, this feels good.
I'm glad you said he's almost like the Terminator, because I thought about that last night too, because once you get to like sort of like the twist of his character where you kind of like realize, oh, he's kind of like, this is kind of like a rogue program who wants to escape the confines of the Matrix. Once you get to that point, a little part of me is a little disappointed because you want to see him continue being the Terminator. You kind of want to see him continue being this unstoppable like force inside the Matrix, and you want to see him kind of like live up to this potential, which you do. I mean, like he becomes, I mean, you get to the Burly Brawl and, you know, Reloaded, and then like 3 also like has some pretty like decent scenes with him, but like, yeah, like do you get a little bit of that? Like, do you get a little bit of like, oh man, like it's a bit of a bummer. I mean, like for the story, overall story, it's obviously the best thing to happen, because like now you're giving this character, this rogue program, a bit more dimension, and like he has his own sort of, yeah, he's got his own like motivation, rather than being just sort of like a one-note Terminator, like let me destroy Mr. Anderson kind of thing. But like a little bit of me is like, oh man, I kind of want to see him like be that Terminator character.
Yeah, like you want to see him continue to be that constant that whole time. But like you said, I definitely think it adds another flavor to the movie later on, and it kind of like, oh, okay, this is not as black and white as I thought it was.
Yeah.
he gets interrogated by the agent, and again, basically the same conversation with his boss. There's two paths here. One of these lives has a future, the other one does not. He tells him to eat shit, and they basically fuck his belly button. That is like harrowing, man. That
harrowing.
Is oof.
Every time an insect goes inside an orifice, and one that is, and in this case, an orifice that is usually closed.
Yes. Oh, Danny, talk to me about this.
That just sounds like another Saturday night to me, my man. I don't know about you, but things in orifices, let's go. No, it's scary as hell, right? Like, but it also made me wonder, and then it's clarified later. I was like, man, if they needed to stop Neo, they fucking had him right here. Like, they could have ended the whole thing if they really knew who they had. But then later, I think even Morpheus alludes to the point where he says, if they know what I know, you would probably be dead now. And then that's kind of the same exact time later in the movie. He's kind of giving him the pep talk of just being like, I think I've ended my search for the one because I think that you're that person. So, man. And then for him to wake up, and then there's a part of the movie where you think that it's a dream, that he doesn't actually have that in him, just for them later to go and pick him up, and in anticipation of the whole red pill blue pill thing, getting them in the car and then being like, oh, we think you're bugged. There is a look that he has when they say, we think you're bugged, that like without him saying anything is him realizing that the dream that he had last night wasn't a fucking dream, and that like everything else as a result of that is like the fear just starts creeping into him. And they do a great job, I will say, making it look like it's actually under his belly button whenever they suck it into that machine and then spit it out to extract him ultimately. But yeah, I love that. I even love that Zoheb called out the shot of him being led into the agent's car through the glass of through the reflection, the mirror of the motorcycle. I think that's a pretty sick shot too. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't want to cut you off. No, I think that that whole thing of, we've all had dreams where we've woken up from at least once in our lives like that, where we wake up and it's something like mine. I have a lot of dreams about falling like off of stuff. Like I'll be walking down the steps and my foot will slip and I'll wake up like that. And sometimes they're way worse. Like I'll be up on top of a building and fall and I'll fucking like, holy shit, that was horrible. But to wake up from this dream and be like, oh, thank God that wasn't the deal. And then they're just like, no, you're pregnant, bitch. We got to get that thing out of there. That is, God, oh man. Yeah, we just went through that scene.
First time I also saw suicide doors on a car, by the way. I don't know why I wanted to point that out, but afterwards I was like, they make cars where the doors go the other way. Don't know why that was so like cool to me, but they picked some bitchin' cars with this.
Man, just the shot of him like standing under the bridge and the rain's like kind of like draped over like a curtain, man. It's stunning. You're both nodding in agreement, by the way, because it's an audio medium. But it's stunning, man. Bill Pope just absolutely went ham with this shot.
Well, yeah, and one of the things I love is that we went through this whole scene, and I don't know about you guys, but when I see a scene like that, like him being interrogated and being, forcefully being penetrated in the belly button by this thing, it's, when he wakes up and it's all a dream, I definitely feel a sense of relief. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. Like that was it was still horrible to watch, but at least I'm, so then the next scene is them going, all right, no, that really isn't there. And we have to rip it back out of you. You make me experience it twice, and you bring me in with this lull of relief, and then just bring it right back up again and rip it out. It's fucking brutal. And I love the fact that the machine plugs into the cigarette lighter. I love that. I think that's so cool. I think that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, what kind of amperage are you getting from that?
Yeah, right.
That thing looks like a giant, like coffee machine. You'd probably need a little bit more energy, a little bit more juice for that thing. But I guess also one thing here is Switch calls him Copper Top, which I guess is like slang for like battery. I think it's like a
Oh,
like because he's basically a battery,
right.
and that's kind of like a euphemism.
I
which
did
I
not
never
know
caught.
that. Like
Yeah.
a Duracell. Okay.
As a kid,
Um,
I for years thought that she called him Kabutops, like the Pokemon. Please continue.
Also, when they stopped the car here, very briefly, I also noticed that they stopped on Wabash Avenue, which is like later, like when we're at the end of the movie, he says, the tank says, I have another exit for you on Wabash and Lake. And I'm just like, does this movie take place in like a 3 square like kilometer radius? Like
They start the movie in the same hallway that they ended in. So I mean, that says it all.
Yeah,
for
that's
you.
true. That's true.
oh shit! Do they really?
Same room and everything.
Yeah, the hotel that Neo is in at the end when he defeats Smith is the hotel.
Oh
Is
shit!
the abandoned
I didn't even
hotel
catch
that Trinity is in at the beginning. Yeah,
Jesus
maybe you should
Christ.
fucking watch the movie.
I watched that. Didn't I just thought it was another fucking shithole abandoned building in like Hell's
Did you
Kitchen.
do your goddamn research?
Oh yeah, no, I've seen this movie so many times, but I've never fucking paid attention to that it's the same hotel. I fucking never paid attention to that. I just thought it was another abandoned building. But after they get that thing out of his belly, they take him to finally go see Morpheus, and she says, "Just be honest with him. He knows more than you think." The two finally meet, and what a fucking performance by Lawrence Fishburne! Like he adds so much to the character just by the voice. The voice is like the biggest thing. Like it's an incredible like performance that like everything is so calm and stated and like confident in this world, and he still has some of it in the real world, Zion and stuff, but this is when his charm is like thickest, and you are like, dude, take my hand and lead me through this, good sir, because I trust you with my life. Like he's got so much charm and charisma.
You know, I've always wanted to be able to fucking fold my hands behind my back like that, but I, kind of like resigned to the fact that if I get handcuffed by the police, I'll probably need 2 sets of handcuffs. Because how like he's standing at the window and the way he's got his like hands like folded behind his back, I'm just like, dude, you are like bending the physics of your like hands right there, because they're so square. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're so straight.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
It's like perfectly locked. Like I just tried to do it, and I was like, I can do it, but it doesn't look that good. And he's not a small dude either. Lawrence Fishburne's a pretty big guy.
Well, I mean, when Keanu Reeves sees him in like John Wick 3, it's just like you're a different person. You are a different person, Lawrence.
Oh. I forgot he went by Larry Fishburne for like a little while in his career. There's like a bunch of movies that are Larry Fishburne. I was like, oh, it's got to be Lawrence, man. That sounds way better. But he basically sits him down and gives him, the pitch. He's like, the Matrix is everywhere. It's in this room. You see it when you look out the window. He basically tells him, like, don't you just feel that something's off? Haven't you always felt that something's off? And you can see just Neo is just like, man, this guy's reading me like a fucking book. He's calling everything that I'm thinking right now. And
he does say that like you can't. Yeah, the Matrix can't be explained. It must be like shown, right? Like you need to experience it. And I'm just like, well, I mean, you're still being pretty cryptic. You're still being pretty cryptic. You can just say like, hey, this is a simulation, right?
Hey, you know what? You know dreams? This is basically a dream, and you're asleep somewhere. I'm asleep right now too, but I can wake up and go to sleep when I choose and be like, oh, okay.
Okay, well, I guess the non-dick sort of like maybe this is the way it is because he's probably not trying not to break his mind, right? Even though like Neo at one point like throws up, right? Like, he's going to pop like that whole moment.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's kind of like drip feeding information on purpose so he doesn't make him, obviously like, topple over.
Blow his fucking brains.
Right.
And, he basically gives him the pitch, which is super iconic now. Take the blue pill, you wake up, figure out what the fuck happened for yourself. Red pill, let's go down this rabbit hole, bitch. Which was actually the first draft of the script was let's go down this rabbit hole, bitch. But they decided to expand upon it a little bit more.
Was it actually? That's fucking awesome.
No, you fucking twat. You dumb twat. No.
We say twat. here.
Oh,
Damn it.
love the. I think Danny might have been the first one to point this out to me. The shot in each glass, it's a different colored pill.
Was not going to let you go
It's
past.
sick.
Yeah, was not going to let you go past this without bringing up how much I love that shot. I don't even know if that's how
It's
it would
awesome.
look in real life. I want to say that both glassed lenses would pick up both hands, but I've never like gone up to somebody and be like, hey, hold these fucking pills real quick. I just love that there is that whole shot of the red pill, blue pill reflection that you can almost summarize the whole movie in some screenshots, and that's one of them easily.
It's very much a post-production shot, like they
Oh
did, did some
all the reflections.
computer fuckery with it. But I mean, like it's stunning.
It's a sick shot.
He takes the red pill, and he said, "I love what does Morpheus say?" He's like, "I apologize, but we're all basically always running out of time." He's like, "We're always just 2 steps behind," and it immediately this shit kicks off, and they get him, plugged up.
What would you guys take? Would you guys, okay, Colin? Would you take the blue pill or the red pill?
I mean, probably the red pill. If I'm this invested, if I'm like a computer hacker and people know who I am and like people are calling me the one and shit like that, it's like, I don't know. But at the same time, you might end up being like Cypher and get fucking sick of it and be like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you know what being like real has gotten me? Fucking nothing. I eat
Danny?
gruel and live in a spaceship.
Right, exactly. I mean, like that's the whole premise, right? Danny, what would you be a red pillar or a blue pillar?
If I were aware of the choice, I think I would have trouble moving on knowing that I could see more and not taking advantage of it. So I think I would probably default to the red pill. Even though the blue pill, like, ignorance is bliss. You know, Cypher says it at one point. That's his whole
right,
like shtick of wanting to just go right back in. And basically, you know, it's like almost like Cypher wishing that he could go back and take the blue pill. But I think if I knew that there was something more out there, I would probably go insane if I took the blue pill and just had to sleep with that the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great point. You know, for the longest time, like when I watched this movie, like when I was younger, I thought that he took the red pill just because, sort of like he was curious. But I think there's more to it than that. Like he's definitely, and Steph and I were talking about this because we asked each other the same question: would you take the blue pill? Would you take the red pill? She's absolutely a blue pill girl. She's like, yeah, keep me inside the simulation. I love it here. You know. And she, like, her whole thing was like, why would someone take the red pill? And then that kind of made me question Neo's motivation here for taking the red pill, which is, in my opinion, I think he's got an inkling or he's got some kind of idea that he has a greater purpose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you know that or if you have some kind of like idea that that you might do something important one day, then you'd want to take that leap. You know, like this is because he doesn't know about the prophecy yet, so he doesn't really like. It's not like it's self-fulfilling. You know what I mean? But that, like, if he has this idea that like he might be the Messiah, he might be the savior figure for these guys, then you might take that. You might be more inclined to take that leap. You know. But that's Neo. That's not us normies, right? Like, if us normies are like given this this opportunity, I don't know. I think there'd be quite a lot of people who would be very much content to take the blue pill.
I agree. But do those people have someone like Lawrence fucking Fishburne convincing them to do it with this speech?
Right.
He's got a ton of speeches in this, by the way. I, to this day, can't pick a favorite like speech of his. It might be the blue pill, red pill one. It might be the one in the room right after that, where, you know, have you ever had a dream that you thought was real? You know, that whole one is great too.
There's like a 20-minute stretch, like I think that begins right here, where he just goes on a run. Yeah. But the red pill is actually a trace, right, Colin? Like it's actually. Because I think they're using it to locate his body in the real world. Is that right?
Yeah. Because right afterwards, he is unplugged and they go and find him.
Yeah.
Okay. I just figured they were waiting in like the riverbanks for the washouts. Just be like, oh, I hope that's him.
Be great if he-
Well, he says the pill that we gave you was part of a trace program.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, then, yeah, that answers it.
Be great if they gave him the red pill and immediately they just kind of started laughing. They were like, "You just took a laxative." Like he's just like, it runs away.
Yeah, that's Ipecac, sir.
Also, notably, he meets the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar here as well.
Right. Yeah. We see Cypher and APOC and I almost said Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still some more too on the ship, which I forgot about. There's like Tank and Dozer and the little scrappy
Mouse.
guy. Mouse.
I don't think Mouse is in this scene.
No. But it's incredibly like captivating. You know, them again taking the phone off of the hook and putting it on that machine and the metal. We've talked about this to death. But it's also the stuff of him being like, hey, I need a signal. You know, I need a lock on now. And it's just like he's starting to have, you know, his heart's like failing him out of just, you know, his body not being able to handle it.
It almost sounds like a surgery room. Like you get the feeling that they're like doing a procedure and that something might actually not go okay.
Right, absolutely. But fortunately for him, everything does go pretty well, and he is officially unplugged from the Matrix. He wakes up, you know, looking like a pea in a fucking pod. This I remember as a kid seeing it and being like, what the fuck turn did this movie just take? Like, what the hell is going on? This blew my mind as a kid, you know, and I'd seen like plenty of horror movies and sci-fi stuff up until this point, but this was like a whole other like, whoa, what the fuck, man.
So much KY jelly. So much KY. But like, yeah, I completely agree with what you're talking about, Colin. Like the whole tone shifts because even the music, it's like this like vocal, like this like horror like vibe. And yeah, like there's that incredible shot of like him looking out at like the stacks of batteries or humans, and it's like it's this pan from top to bottom, and like all this electricity, and this robot that comes down to him. Can we just mention how incredible this thing looks for a 25-year-old effect?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, there's definitely stuff from back then that looks way worse, but yeah, that looks pretty good for being 25 years old.
Right.
I love this.
But they flush him.
Yeah.
They flush him down the drain.
And like 20 seconds ago, I did this, and there's no video to this, so you guys are going to hear that noise 20 seconds ago and be like, what the fuck was it? But it was me, basically, him grabbing his hand against the window and being like trying to grab on and not be flushed down. You just hear it go, whoa! Like he's just like trying not to get sucked down. That's the only thing I could think of like a minute ago when you guys said so much KY jelly was his hand just like so slimy and like bright, just like punk. Again, audio, character of the movie. But yeah, his ass gets flushed.
Yeah, like a prom night dumpster baby, Neo gets flushed down the toilet, and he spends the next few months basically getting used to just the light. I love that he's like, how come I can't move? He's like, your muscles are muscles are atrophied, and like your eyes hurt because you've never used them before. And I really like that as a detail to this. Like, yeah, if you've been in a coma and basically he's been dreaming, he's never actually done any of this stuff. Like, yeah, that's actually exactly how it would be. It's a great little detail.
Well, it's a little clue as to how far in the future we are because, Morpheus gives us what year it is later. He doesn't give it to us now. But the fact that he was grown at this point and not born, he's never used his eyes, is really fascinating already. It's like a little breadcrumb before we get the answer again.
Right. And we see, just basically, I would say several weeks to maybe months of time of him, recuperating and all this acupuncture and stuff. And eventually, I love that they take all the plugs out, but they leave the one in the back of the neck. I think that's cool. Or most of the plugs out. I know he has one in his arm, but I know they show them like taking them out of his back and stuff. That, like you said, Lawrence Fishburne tells him, he's like, yeah, it's basically $21.99. That's the best we can figure out. Nobody's really being able to like keep up anymore, and walks everybody through the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar. And right away, like, again, it's not like, oh, take your time, blah blah blah. Like, no, we have to get going because you've been recuperating for weeks. So like they immediately drop him in to the program and introduce him to really what the Matrix is. And now I feel like now as the viewer, like, it's so shocking seeing him wake up in the tube that being back to this world is kind of like, oh, okay, so yeah, this is a little bit more like familiar. We're already back to the real world, like the Matrix. I think that helps make it a lot more digestible going like right back and seeing how easy it is for them to go in and out,
And if we look around when he's like on the deck of the Nebuchadnezzar, like you're just kind of like blown away by like the aesthetic of it all, because it's all this like rusted, bolted on shit like that they've just found and kind of like welded together. Even their clothes are like this ragged, like, the fucking smell in there must be terrible because they all look like homeless people. They all look like bums.
Yeah.
But it's just it's crazy that we go from like this slick Matrix to the real world, which is they're just scavengers, and I guess in the eyes of the robots or the machines, they're terrorists essentially.
Right. Yeah. And I love that the way that everything looks is very, even down to like his shaved head, is very like Alien 3. Like that reminds me of the David Fincher Alien. But the right away, like I said, we're jumping back into it and we're getting more exposition, but this is, I don't know, I'm usually not down with exposition, but I don't mind this because there are so many questions that we have as like the viewer at this point of like, okay, so it's $21.99. Like, how did we jump that far? How did the world end up like coming to like this kind of place that it's basically everybody has to like live on ships and there's one giant like mosh pit that everybody lives in? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we need to have like some answers here. And I like the fact that the explanation that's given is like, there's a lot of exposition in this, but I don't know, I don't mind it because I love like the story of how everything happened. I don't love Neo's like arc through this. It's very like, okay, cool, it works, like it's fine,
like it's reactionary.
Right. I love the backstory of this, of how they basically nuke the sun to like, to basically fuck them over, and how the war that happened and shit. It's very like almost like Terminator, almost like Skynet, like, and I again blew my mind as a kid seeing this and being like you said, basically they're batteries and they're being like harvested all the time, and seeing the fields of them, and it's like, holy shit, man. What did you guys think about this kind of like now that he's been in the Matrix, he can finally like explain it to him better?
Something cool that didn't quite dawn on me again until many releases later, like rewatches later, is that before it almost feels like he's really just being watched by like Trinity or maybe Morpheus for a long time, but as you bring him into this where he's actually in the real world and he's recuperating, he's communicating directly with them, like Nebuchadnezzar, he's part of their crew and he's like kind of training. You think about how like it's not just one or two people that's watching him. There's like an entire crew of people that are watching him go through this whole thing. Like he doesn't feel like he's being watched by a single person this whole time anymore. It's he feels like he has this crew that's like rooting him on. I like seeing several of the scenes while the whole crew is collectively recuperating him and getting him ready for the real world, where Tank and Dozer do have like just hundreds of those acupuncture needles or whatever inside him. I don't know what it is, but that shot is cool. Like, I don't know how long it took for them to do that to him, but I think it's sick that he's sitting there. There's just a shit ton of these like needles sticking out of him. And then, it's cool to see the camaraderie that you actually feel like this like scrappy crew really does have that sense of hope they're going to get somewhere one day whenever you see all them sitting around and talking, and like, Tank being like, he told me to feed you the normal programs, but because that's some boring ass shit, like, I want to feed you the kung fu ones. Like, that's something that you and somebody who's really cool with you would want to, like, hear. It's like, I know we're supposed to go through the program of how to fucking eat cereal in the Matrix, but, like, fuck that. Let's do some of the cool shit and, like, learn how to smoke crack and, like, let's go. Like, that's like, it's cool that they do that. There's later where, he's learning how to fight, and Mouse basically just, like, goes down the ladder without holding on to it, swings the door open, and it's like, Morpheus is fighting Neo, and you see them jump over the dinner table to go see it. Like, I love seeing how the exposition is this world building, and you also learn so much about the crew in such little snippets that makes you feel like they are a family. I actually do miss some of the people in the crew from the second and third one. Aside from everything else going on in the second and third one, like, there's people in the crew of the first one that I genuinely miss in the later ones. What do you think, Zoheb?
Yeah, man, I completely agree. Like, I think there's a couple of people that they introduce in the second and third ones that become part of the crew who are really good. There's that when, like, especially like when they get to Zion, like, I think there's some decent characters in Zion. But like this whole sequence of, like, Morpheus sort of, like, giving him basically the download of, like, what's going on kind of thing. This exposition I kind of really enjoy. Because, like I said, yes, like, the movie, like, takes a big pause for, like, this 10-minute stretch, and just, like, kind of like, okay, let's pump the brakes. But I think it works really well because of how many questions the audience has until this point. You know what I mean? Like, if you're watching this for the first time in 1999, you haven't seen things like Inception. Like, like, this kind of, like, thinking, or this kind of, like, concept in movies hasn't been done at this point, so
you're entitled to some answers.
Right, exactly. And I think like what the Wachowskis present in this moment, that the whole world that you potentially know is a simulation, because the machines don't want you to break your mind, because your energy is so vital for their existence. That is such a heavy concept.
Yeah.
It's such a heavy concept. And the way that, like I said, the way that Morpheus breaks it down is so easy. Like, it's so easily, like, digestible. When it could be something that's so complex and so tough to talk about and so difficult to, I guess, articulate. But it's so well done, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very like you said, alien, very like H.R. Geiger-y, or however you want to say that. I love the images of it. It's very what's the right word? Invading. It's just like, oh man, you just total, like, lie of who you are.
The fetuses with, like, the stuff, like the thing on the back of the necks is like, yeah, it's very very biting, very, like, in your face,
Mm-hmm. And Neo demands to be, released from the construct. He ends up, letting it go, but he vomits, basically in rejection of it. And, once he wakes back up, he asks Morpheus, he says, I can't go back, can I? He's like, no. And I'm sorry, normally we don't pull somebody that's your age, I think is what he says. He's usually younger are the people that we pull out. But I did it because I believe
he's too old to be a Jedi.
Right, yeah. Yeah. He'll never be granted the rank of master.
Right.
What? But like he says, I normally would never bring out somebody that's basically that age. But he explains about the guy who freed Morpheus and freed the others, and that when he died, there was a prophecy that he would be brought back, and he believes that Neo basically is that one, that he will bring down the fall of the Matrix, and everybody will be free, and yada yada, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But, so this is the point that, to me, the movie, like, existentially gets very interesting, because this is where Neo gets wind of this prophecy, right? Like, there's this prophecy that exists. These people believe, like, they have faith that someone is going to come in and rescue them, or come in and like, you know, save them from like extinction, and that Neo is the one. But like, I love thinking about the idea whether Neo actually is the one, or whether, you know, because he's being told of the prophecy, he's going to rise to the occasion to become the one. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right? Which came first, the prophecy, or, you know, did the prophecy never exist and it's just a story? And like, here's this guy who is going beyond, like above and beyond, and eventually becomes the prophecy. You know what I mean? Like, it's so cool to think about. Because like now you start to question Neo's motivations, well, not motivations. Now you start to question Neo's actions going forward. Like when he goes to the Oracle's office and like he looks at the kid like bending the spoon, like is he thinking about, oh, okay, like there's this prophecy and like now I like really need to like work extra hard to rise to the occasion. And when the Oracle tells him like, no, you're not the you're not the one, like does that falter him? You know what I mean? Like, does he take a step back? And yes, he kind of does, but not when the moments matter. You know, like it's so interesting. I really, really dig the prophecy element of this movie.
Well, yeah, and I like it because it has to put some kind of doubt. If you're told you're the one, then you know you don't really have to work for it. It's just going to happen. But when somebody tells you, no, I don't think you are actually that. Like, okay, and it's the Oracle saying it, that really kind of plants a big seed of doubt that, you know, basically Yoda is telling you, no, I don't think you're the chosen one. You know, like that. Yeah, that would definitely knock the wind out of my sails a little bit. After we have that great scene with them, we were introduced to Tank. He's the operator, a natural born citizen of Zion. He ends up showing him how to, you know, basically how to do kung fu, which is downloaded. I love it. Did you sleep? No. Well, you will tonight. and he downloads that to his brain. Such a great line is that camera zooms on his face like, I know kung fu. That's so fucking. I always laugh at that every time I see it.
It's so cool because like Steph had never seen this movie before, but before last night. Sorry. So when he's like, I know kung fu, like when he goes to like load it, just before that, she goes, like, wouldn't all he had to do is just like load it in, like download it in? And I'm like, yeah, wait a second, that's exactly what he does. And then we kind of get this montage. There's like no one moving or anything. It's not like a full on like action sequence of like him training kung fu, not yet at least. It's literally just Tank loading in programs, and I'm like, you know what I mean?
Three camera cuts later, like, he's like 10 hours straight. He's a machine.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's so funny because like Tank is like loading sort of like modified floppy disks, and it's like, well, you guys, I mean, clearly like humanity was destroyed at some point and there was like no technological advancement, because today it'll just be Wi-Fi. Like that's how.
But the farthest they got the back then, Zoheb, was floppy disks. That's the most. Right.
Right. Like today, if like Neo was wanting to sort of like learn something, it would just be like an iCloud Wi-Fi update. You know, what
it would
I mean?
be an app. It would be like, let me download that app.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm glad that you pointed that out. I think that it's pretty dope that it is as simple as them downloading stuff, and if anything, there is a part of me that's like, man, like a few hundred years from now, it'd be cool if you did have the ability to just learn stuff by downloading it. It would take the joy out of learning things. I think it would fundamentally change a lot of like how humanity, like, you know, spends their time and like expresses themselves. But imagine all of the subjects that you needed to learn to accomplish a goal that you would opt to learn in seconds instead of years.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Like you just upload the whole Encyclopedia Britannica to your mind and you're just like, okay, I'm done. I just love, like, can you imagine like it pans over to like Tank's screen and it's just fucking LimeWire? Like he's just downloading shit of LimeWire, dude. Like
he's getting a bunch of viruses. Morpheus is like, did you download the Linkin Park Faint with an A or Faint with an E? With an E. Well,
He gives the whole Nebuchadnezzar a fucking virus because he's downloading just torrents.
Like the lights of the ship just switch off and like
Yeah. Has anybody
Oh
ever...
man, I got Billy Joel's discography.
Has anybody ever actually paused all of the screens that Cypher is on when Neo walks up later and like sneaks up on him? Because one of those is like, there's probably one of those screens where Cypher's downloading, we're all going to say it, a bunch of porn. That's exactly what he's doing.
A shitload of pornography.
He's just
well, I mean,
programming
like
it in his head.
let's not get it twisted. I mean, pornography will be so much better in the Matrix than it would be in the real life. I mean, as we witness from the Red Woman, Mouse knows what I'm talking about.
I designed her. Yeah, that's a great part. So where are we at? He's been learning a shit ton of stuff, right? Yeah, take us away, Colin.
Right. This great fight scene between Morpheus and Neo, something I think I've said more than once in our playing Halo together of like, stop trying to hit me and hit me. I've said that like so many times where it's like, don't try to do it, do it. Like, don't try. Like, I know it's so like black and white, but it's like once you figure it out though, where it's like I'm the only thing in my way. It's like it's my mind, my limitations. Like I just need to like not try to control it and just let my natural kind of like thing take over.
Still waiting on you to hit somebody in Halo, by the way. Still waiting on you to hit somebody in Halo.
Yes. Still waiting on you to go Zen and cap motherfuckers. But he has this.
Sorry, Colin. I know there's a lot of interruptions, but like I'm just like, because they're in the construct right now. This is not the Matrix, right? So like, essentially, like Tank has like loaded them into this sort of like dojo where they're kind of like going 1-on-1, they're sparring. But then like, this is where my mind is kind of like, if you have created this construct where you can do almost anything or you can train in almost anything, why not do almost anything? You know what I mean? Like why are we using hand-to-hand combat?
Oh, yeah.
You know
why are we
mean?
not getting like F-15, like getting in flying tanks that shoot nukes and stuff?
Why aren't we doing Green Lantern shit where we can just imagine whatever the fuck we want? You know what I mean? Like, why are we limited to hand-to-hand? Why are we limited to firearms?
That did occur to me whenever, near the very fucking end, when they fight through a whole building to get to the top and get the helicopter. I was like, could they just start it with the helicopter? Like,
well, so that's different though, because the Matrix, Morpheus says in a very small line, the Matrix has rules. Like, there are rules that can not be broken in the Matrix, but in this construct, that's not the case. I think, like in this construct, they're controlling the construct, whereas the Matrix is a program that has been designed that has rules that cannot be broken, and that's why some of the physics is in. This is me explaining things, by the way, in my own mind. Like, I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is particularly fact. I'm more than happy to be fact checked by anyone listening, but like to me, the Matrix has, because it's code. Like, it has, like, certain sort of, like, guardrails that can't be broken, but sometimes those guardrails can be broken through, like the helicopter smashing into the building and, like breaking the physics of it. Like, some of that makes sense because it's just bending the code a little bit.
Eventually Neo is, like, flying,
Right,
so it's like, there's these, you can't do anything in the Matrix, but you can push the boundaries of it.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like a bad example is like campaign versus multiplayer, and the construct versus the Matrix. It's like the campaign is like this certain specific thing that like you're not out and about with real threats and stuff. You're just going against AI.
I think a better example would be multiplayer or matchmaking versus private match, where you can or Forge, right? Maybe if we want to put it in Halo examples, you can like put guns and like buildings wherever the fuck you want in Forge, but matchmaking, you're playing inside a pre-programmed
somebody else's
map.
Rules.
Yeah, exactly.
So my whole thing, I guess, why I brought up the helicopter piece was that they're able to load up a shit ton of guns and bring them in, but do they not have a helicopter available for them to bring in? Because they they load up I'm jumping way ahead, but later they load in a bajillion guns, lots of guns.
Yeah,
bring that in.
That's my other question.
But it's like, why didn't they just bring in a helicopter then? If maybe they didn't know they were going to need it as they fought through that building or what the fuck ever. But there are like tiny little moments where it's like they actually have a shit ton of power in their hands way throughout this movie that if somebody else wrote it, you could have like, skipped a couple pages or whatever, or like, they could have killed Neo right out of the gate with the power that they had if they knew what they had in front of them.
And we are applying like logic that we've learned from like media in the last 25 years since the writing of this movie. This movie is not thinking about that kind of stuff that we're talking about. But like, I completely agree, Danny. Like, I had that thought as well during the scene where Neo is, guns, lots of guns, and they're choosing their arsenal. How are they taking the guns from the construct into the Matrix? You know what I mean? Like, how are they applying that stuff to the Matrix? Was my question as well. So, if anyone's listening to this right now and has an answer for that, I'd love to know. But yeah, and again, just please remember that I've only seen Revolutions like once or twice, and Reloaded I haven't seen it in a very long time. So if those questions are answered then let me know.
But yeah, we get this great fight scene between Neo and Morpheus. Again, stop trying to hit me and hit me. It's a great fucking fight. Eventually you start seeing him kind of again push the boundaries, like his arm doing that weird like digital effect. Like that's really cool. And, he eventually gets his ass kicked, but he is still like, for not knowing jack shit of how to throw a punch an hour ago. Now, all of a sudden he's, like fighting against Morpheus and keeping up to some degree is really promising. And the crew gets all excited about it and starts watching. And ultimately he, Neo stops short of punching him, and he says, I can't make you go. All I can do is show you the door. He's like, I can't force you through the door, Neo. Like, all you have to do is jump. And that's when they load up the jump program or whatever we want to call it. And that kind of left me with some questions because he falls and he hits the fucking ground. And when he wakes up, he's got blood in his mouth. I was like, well, no, hey, well, if you fell, like, I think you'd have a little bit more than blood in your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I thought, because I think they're in the construct, they're not in the Matrix. Basically, maybe the construct is like, yeah, it's like 10% fall damage. It's something totally different.
I feel like there was, and I can tell Zoheb has a little bit to say here too, but I feel like it's a little bit of like, no, like, leave the electric fence on and let him touch it, because like from that point on, he'll never fucking forget that fence is turned on. Like, that's kind of how I took it. What do you think, Zoheb?
No, I agree as well. I think it's teaching him the boundaries of the Matrix, but in the safety net of the construct.
Right? Yeah, we don't want to kill him, but we want him to shove that fork in the outlet and let him learn.
Exactly. Like when we're up against agents in the Matrix, we need him to know that he can't just walk into the bullets and be okay in real life.
Right? Absolutely. And they all say nobody makes a jump the first time. Of course, he doesn't. He just doesn't have that. It's a leap of faith, you might say. Doesn't have the faith in himself to do it. And when he wakes up again, he's got the blood in his mouth, and he says, "I thought it wasn't real." And Morpheus says, "Your mind makes it real. So if you die in the Matrix, you die here. The body cannot live without the mind," says Morpheus, and again sets up that very, very strict rule: the body cannot be separated. Trinity brings Neo dinner, and we kind of start seeing these seeds of resentment from Cypher. These little moments of him again foreshadowing to something going on with him.
I want to be something important, like an actor.
Yeah. So this is interesting. This is something that I was looking for in this movie this time around was the crew's whether the crew believed as much as Morpheus. But I know that the crew, or most of them, believe in Morpheus to make the right decision, because Morpheus could be like a fundamentalist and just be like, look, this is the one, you know what I mean? Like I fully believe that he's the one, and that might affect his like decision-making process. You know what I mean? Like that might affect his like ability to lead. But like here, Cypher is just, we know that Cypher's a non-believer. Cypher doesn't believe that Neo is the one. He's like, why if Morpheus believes that he is the one so bad, why doesn't he take him to see the Oracle? And I'm just like, yeah, like I kind of like that we are seeing some dissension in the ranks. Like, we are kind of seeing that not all of them blindly believe Morpheus or blindly believe that Neo is the one. I really like
He's
that.
the Judas. He's 100% the Judas of the story. And we see his seeds of doubt being sown already. And after he bitches about never being served dinner, Morpheus and Neo go back into this is the construct, I think, not the Matrix. I can't remember. I think this is the construct.
This has to be the construct because Mouse's red woman is inside this.
Okay, there we go.
This is Martin Place, by the way, which is incredible. It's never that busy. like that's how you know you're in the Matrix. But Martin Place is incredibly popular in the city. Again, where I worked for years.
What are you, a fucking tour guide? Let it go.
I am.
Christ. No,
I am. Star Maps.
Has Zohan ever mentioned that he lives in Australia before?
I mean, no, that is a big deal. It's like besides Mad Max, you guys don't get a lot.
1000% agree. Yeah, we
you also see
Nashville.
very briefly.
That's literally the name of the fucking show and movie.
I don't know if this is an error, but very briefly, when literally just before he says lawyers, carpenters, blah blah. You see the logo of the Commonwealth Bank, which is our biggest bank. So I don't know if they left that in or if it was an error, but that's so funny.
Maybe just an Aussie thing that you would get. I would have never known that.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's in a couple shots, actually.
Morpheus explains that the Matrix is a system and that the system is their enemy. All of the people that inhabit it, there are people trying to be free, a part of the system. Some of them aren't ready to be unplugged. Some of them are just so inert and dependent upon the Matrix they can never be free. And we see the girl in the red dress. He's like, the girl in the red dress, look again, and then it's a fucking desert eagle right in his face. I love that. And again, we're getting a lot of exposition of basically Morpheus explaining what the agents are and that they can move in and out of any software hardwired. Sorry, they can move in and out of any software hardwired into their systems, meaning they can take over anyone in the Matrix program inside the Matrix. They are everyone and they are no one. And basically they are this invisible force that can pop out any place and any time. That is terrifying. That's a fucking great power for an enemy. Just they can take over like the dude in the helicopter is what I always think of. The one he John Carpenter, the Thing, turns into an agent in the cockpit. That's one of the fucking best parts of this movie to me. It always scared me when I first saw it. But we are getting a lot of shit thrown at us, which is fine, again, because we've had a few badass fight scenes so far, some shootout stuff. I like it, but the best is yet to come. He explains to him,
this is the place where Morpheus is this is still a world built on rules.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And basically he says, again, they're this invisible force that can be pretty much all around you. And his crew survives just by, running from them and hiding. They basically have to stay 100% on the run all the time. That they're holding out, but sooner or later they're going to have to fight them. But no one has ever stood up to an agent and survived, which is an important fact. Everybody has died, but still Morpheus is certain that because the agents live in a world of rules where they can never be as strong, never be as fast as he can be. I love that. What are you trying to tell me, that I can dodge bullets? And he says, when you're ready, you won't have to. And we get the phone call that leads to our first introduction to yet again another. I will say that it is a lot of information being dumped. After this, there's a lot of setup to this movie. Yeah, but it's because
we're about to learn about the Sentinels right now too.
Right, it's a lot of stuff. So I can see this. I can see why this would turn off. I personally think that you could even make an argument from the beginning of the movie to when Neo gets unplugged could be an hour and a half long movie by itself. It could be its own little, if they wanted to turn this into two 2.5 to 2 hour long movies, I think you absolutely could, because there's so much stuff in it. Like, if this had been a season of television, this would be like the 4th episode, but instead we're still only an hour into this. Like, that's a lot of shit, man, to be dumping on people. So I understand why that turns some people off, but like, personally, me, like, I love movies like this, Inception, like stuff that's got very high concept that makes you really, really pay attention to it. I love. But as considering we're about the halfway point, I have really got to pee. So I think we're going to take a break for a minute, and I got to get something to eat. I'm fucking starving. But we'll be right back with the second half of our coverage of The Matrix. Don't go anywhere. Hey, what's up, guys? Coming back at you with the second half of our coverage of The Matrix. We are freshly squeezed, ready to go, ready to jump into this Sentinel standoff, as I like to call it. I like, again, an introduction of a threat that, even once you're unplugged, there's another threat. These are the agents of the real world, and the only defense they have are these EMPs, and it's a very tense moment. But I think it's necessary. It's just a very quick kind of like, okay, hey, and if this ever happens, like, we go on standby and we go to, we basically shut everything down and blah blah blah. Like, I like this setup for this, and we see this quick little scene that I like with Cypher, where he basically, you get the cynicism from him, like, you get the I don't want to say, like, kind of the jealousy, like, there's a hint of jealousy in Cypher when it comes to Neo, where he really does, it's like, I don't know, it's like he wants to believe, but at the same time he's like, well, fuck, why isn't it me, kind of thing. I feel like I get that from Cypher a lot, a very jealous kind of angle from him.
I think also, just to talk about this scene, this also is a little bit of headcanon from my end. I think the reason why he's so shocked that Neo's like sneaks up on him, because he's like, whoa, is because he's setting up his meeting with Agent Smith.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me.
Because that's about to happen. Like, he literally, like, we shift over from this scene to the next scene is like the meeting with Agent Smith. But then also, I have another question when we do get to that scene. How does he do it? How does Cypher physically manage to meet with Agent Smith? Like,
right. How does he plunk himself in and get himself out?
And how does Tank not know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's monitoring it?
Yeah, you gotta, like, because movie.
Yeah,
like,
because movie.
That you gotta hand wave that shit. But it totally, that doesn't make sense at all. But he is eating up. Ooh, that is one bloody ass steak, man. That thing is still mooing. Good Lord. I mean, I like a little red, but that's a little bit too much for me personally.
It is a little too much, but I gotta say, it looks delicious.
It does, yeah.
They do a great job making it look like you can't go another day without eating a fucking meal like that. It looks scrumptious.
Right.
When's the last time we said that?
I think I read a behind the scenes thing. They only had like a very limited time to shoot this scene, because it's like this is shot at the Shangri-La Hotel, which overlooks the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Like, this hotel is like incredibly expensive and incredibly like bougie, for lack of a better term. But yeah, like, this scene, like, they shot really, really quickly. But yeah, it's like. But this is the scene, basically, right? Like, this is the confirmation that Cypher is, making backdoor deals, because, as we explained earlier, there would be people who would have regrets about not taking the blue pill, as he mentioned to Neo. About not taking the blue pill, sorry. As he mentioned to Neo in the previous scene. Like, how... You'd have to, like, think that, like, man, I know it's a construct, but like, if you wiped away my memory of knowing that the Matrix is fake, you wouldn't have any other idea. You'd continue living your life. You'd have this amazing steak, and like he says, because doesn't he want to come back as like an actor or something, like someone really famous? So like
Danny was saying,
exactly. So if he wants to come back with someone with all this like money and opulence and like live his best life, instead of eating goop, on the Nebuchadnezzar. Like, wouldn't you want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, of course, there would be people out there who would want to do that. Like, Stephanie is one of them. But then, like, also, if you talk about being unplugged from the Matrix and being, quote, free, unquote, in Reloaded, we see that Zion is ruled by a council. We see that Zion is, like, ruled by, like, the government and, like, you know, so it's like, how free are you if you are unplugged? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No matter what, there's always somebody that you're going to have to answer to. And that even in like the real world, there's bureaucracy and stuff, you know, that there's a higher council.
Yeah. And maybe they think that they would have choice over, you know, who rules them in the real world. Whereas in the machine world, they don't have choice who rules them. They have to be a slave to the machine for energy. So maybe just, I guess, slight difference, but I know what you mean about like, you can never really fully escape the inevitability of somebody having to like be above you and have a little like power over you.
Mm-hmm. We see the crew eating some gruel. A great contrast to like seeing Cypher's meal to like what the rest of the crew is eating. I love that that juxtaposition. Right. And I do like Mouse also talking about like hey, maybe they just thought everything tasted like chicken. They're like, shut the fuck up, Mouse. Like that's some good like comedic relief. But
yeah, cool.
But it's really good like food for thought, right? I mean, like it's like how did the machines like learn how things taste? You know what I mean? Because I've definitely thought about that. Like not that we're in the Matrix or anything, but I've always wondered like, does blue look the same to me as it does to you, but we just recognize it as blue,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, does chicken taste the same to me as it does to you? Like, if we describe things, but then I guess like you can describe things like with other metaphors and bring those in, but then are those metaphors the same as to me as they are to you? You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of like a head fuck, but I've definitely thought about like the way that we are the things that we perceive the same by other people. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I've gone through this with my wife and listening to music, and I'm like, you don't hear that? And I'll like have to like stop and like turn the bass up. And she's like, oh my God, I had no idea that was in the song. It's like, yeah, there's like layers to it. Like, yeah, it definitely is like a very different kind of perception of reality sometimes, you know, especially people that are colorblind or, you know, people that like see the colors of sound and shit. Like, I think it's synesthesia or something like that.
So I'm partially colorblind. I can't see some shades of green and brown and purple.
Oh shit! I had no idea.
Yeah, and it was funny because like when Steph found out about this, like obviously she had a laugh, she got it out of the way. But then like whenever I have like that lapse of like, just in the real world, I'm like, oh yeah, that blue thing is really cool. She's like, that's purple, and I'm just like, oh yeah, damn. Like you always kind of like what exactly, but like I'm always wondering what she's seeing. You know what I mean? Like it's just the perception of things,
right? We see basically the whole crew get jacked back into the Matrix. We see Cypher throws that cell phone out, which is again setting up his betrayal. And they're going to see the Oracle. And I like that a little bit at first. Neo's like, dude, I used to eat there. That place had really good noodles, you know. And he's kind of like reminiscing about his old life. And he asked, Trinity, whether she's seen whether she has gone to see the Oracle before. And she said that she asked, but when he asked her about what she said, she basically doesn't answer. Which we're going to figure out later what that thing is. And the Oracle and Morpheus explains the Oracle, Morpheus explains, has been with him since the beginning of the Resistance. She is the one who made the prophecy of the One, and that Morpheus would be the one to find him. She can help Neo find the path, he says. They enter this apartment of the Oracle, and there's all these other people. The kid bending the spoons and shit, that always got me. I was like, that's cool.
Well, the Oracle's, I guess, assistant calls them potentials, the other potentials, which I picked up on this viewing. I didn't pick that up on the last time, but like these, I guess any one of these kids could be the one, right? I mean, like these are other kids or other I guess, beings who are plugged into the Matrix that have abilities to bend the Matrix, right? And like, I guess that's how how they're sort of like filtering like who can be the one. But what I also wanted to mention is like when they get to the Oracle's sort of like building, there's that Aboriginal man, the blind Aboriginal man who's kind of sitting there with that badass beard. I did some like reading on this guy. Apparently he's sort of like not super fleshed out in the Animatrix, which is kind of like the comic book sort of like animated version that came out after this, but like I read that this guy may potentially be like the protector of the Oracle, and the reason for that is because he's blind. Because like when the agents sort of like the way the agents are able to morph into other people is through their eyes or what they can see. So they know where they are. Whereas like this man is blind and therefore can't be morphed into. So he's kind of like the sole protector of the Oracle.
That's dope.
Yeah, because if you look at Morpheus when he walks in, he gives the Aboriginal man a nod, and the Aboriginal man nods back, and that's it. And then they walk into the elevator, and it's just like, oh shit, like, you know, I kind of wonder what that was all about, which is kind of wild, man. I'm like, damn, like the lore for this movie goes that deep.
That makes me kind of want to go back and check out parts of the Animatrix, which I won't get too carried away out in here. There's some dope parts of the Animatrix if you've never seen it. Some pretty trippy anime in there. There's some kind of jarring anime to me in there as well. I'm not sure some of it's like probably age, but some cool backstory that's there, especially if you played like, what is it? Into the Matrix? What was like? Is that the game that I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, Into the Matrix is the more popular one, I think.
Yeah, it even relates into Animatrix at one point too. So like it's cool how they did kind of go a little bit into that. It's like extended universe category for just a moment by doing things like with the video games and it being canon and the actors actually showing up and doing the voices of like the Animatrix showing up. But anyway, off on a tangent. Back to the show.
No, but that the Animatrix, that thing was big when it came out. I remember seeing commercials for that everywhere.
Did you guys see it?
I've never seen it.
I did not.
I've seen it. I've watched it a couple times. Okay. I was like about to get your guys' comments on it, but yeah, there's like 6 or 7 episodes and everyone has seen this premise before in other media, but what they did was they basically gave the IP of the Matrix to, I think it's 6 different people and had them write stories, but because each one of those people direct or animate or do whatever completely differently.
Kind of like Star Wars Visions, I guess.
It's like it's the same exact premise of Visions exactly, where you might get one that is CG and then you get one that is drawn in colored pencil. It's just all over the map. So interesting. I think definitely much more of like a filmmaker's somebody who's really into filmmaking and anime, I think, can really appreciate it. And but it's a little out there. You're not missing too much by not seeing it though.
But yeah, we see the other potentials. We see the kid basically saying that there is no spoon. A lot of honestly gibberish. This kid is like, you have to imagine that you are the spoon. I'm like, all right, shut up, dude.
We had a good laugh on this.
I was like, come on now. That's a little, this is a movie smelling its own fart a little too much. Where I was like, okay, calm down, man.
It is. But I was trying to, like, this time, again, like through laughs, like trying to figure out like what he was saying. And like, I guess he's trying to tell Neo to frame it in a way that like, you're kind of like, you need to picture the guidelines or the guardrails of the Matrix or something like that. Like how to visualize it so he can break the rules.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. You've got to test the sandbox that you're in. You know, you've got to push the limits.
I fucking knew there was a metaphor that was covered. I knew it.
Metaphor Mondays on a Friday night. But we're introduced to the Oracle. She's baking cookies. Like Danny said, don't mind the vase. And what's really going to cook your noodle later on is if you hadn't hit it, if I hadn't said anything about it. And she explains to him about being the one and says that it's like being in love. You know it balls to bones through and through. No one can tell you it. You just know that you are. And I like some of this, that it's like some of this is preordained, but at the same time, if you were just like, nah, that's not me, then, that would be, the end of it. There is a choice in being the one. It's like you have to have a faith in yourself to believe that you can be this person, and there has to, it's not just, again, thrust upon you with just like no control of like, no, that's what you are and that's it. I like the fact that there has to be some level of commitment on your end to it as well. Oh, okay. Never mind. No one's going to jump in there.
I was waiting.
Your opinion's okay, but I mean, not good enough to comment on.
But no, absolutely. Like it's definitely like what I was talking about earlier, which is like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And then it's like, do you rise to the occasion to potentially be the one, or like were you always born or destined to be the one? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you put in the time and effort to eventually become the one, or do you get it all sort of like handed to you because this is the predetermined path for you to become that way?
Right. Absolutely. And, she tells him, you're cuter than I thought, which I thought was a funny line. And she drops a bombshell on him. Though. Yeah, not too bright. She tells him that Morpheus is willing to die for him, because he's the one, and says that, one of you is going to have to die, and it's basically, you're going to have to choose, and tells him to eat the cookie and it'll make him feel better. I'm like, lady, you do not have a sense of delivery at all. Like
my favorite spoof of the Oracle has to be in Scary Movie 3. Like when she goes over to like the Oracle's apartment, and she opens like a drawer, and like it's just cigarette butts full of like,
yes.
And then like, the Oracle's husband walks in, turns on the NBA, and then the Oracle turns to him and is like, "Excuse me, do you mind?" He's like, "I'm watching the game." And then she's like, "The Lakers will win by 12.
Yeah.
It turns it off.
Is that Wanda Sykes and Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, I thought it was Eddie Griffin. No?
Maybe it's
I think it's Queen Latifah and Eddie Griffin.
Let me look it up. You guys
so fucking long, y'all. I love that part though.
I like the third one a lot.
It's Eddie Griffin, 100%.
But okay, good. And basically, she tells him, you're going to have to make a choice. Choose which one of you will live and which one will die. As the crew comes back to the jack point, Tank in the control room notices something is odd. Meanwhile, as we're going up there, we see the deja vu, which I love this. Awesome. I love the deja vu being, wait, what did you see? And it's not just a nothing. It means that there's something wrong. Like, what did you think about this as a concept the first time?
What an awesome representation of something going wrong in the Matrix. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like for the Watchowskis to visualize, like for them to sit down and be like, how do we visualize a glitch in the Matrix? Well, I mean, deja vus in real life, like we're always just like, what the fuck? This to me is similar to the moment in Inception when they vocalize, how you like sometimes in a dream you miss a step and you wake up. That's called a kick. And I'm just like, oh, yes, what a fantastic way to take that feeling that you have in real life and merge it into the world of the movie. It's brilliant.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where, the shit hits the fan. We see them, cutting is that the power cable or is that the elevator? Like they snap the
electricity.
Which, yeah, I thought that too, but then none of the lights go out. Like they're all still lit up.
I'm
like, okay,
is it the phone line?
Oh, there you go. That's probably what that is. Good call.
Well, okay. So I have another. Okay, this is another logic question. Maybe we're not supposed to think about it this hard, but I don't get how the hardline phone system works in terms of like getting in and out of the Matrix. So, for example, we have a moment where I don't think it's here. I think it happens a bit later. But like when Cypher is on a hard line, a public phone, and he's like, "I need an exit," and it's like, well, okay, but why can't you make that the exit? You know what I mean? Or have they been here before and planted like phones to exit out of? Is that
That's a great question. That's a great point, man. And it never really even occurred to me that I always thought that the hardline versus cell phone thing was a plot device to force them to be like, they can't just take their cell phone out and quick teleport and quick save anytime they want to get out of a scary situation. They actually have to like go somewhere and there's risk involved. But really good call in the fact that he can't get a extraction through the phone that he called right then through. But like at one point, Trinity is running to a corner that is like about to get fucking plowed over by a truck. So it's like, what? How do you get to
public
pick and
phone?
choose?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
How do you get to pick and choose which of these phones you go to? That's a great point, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be a hardwired in thing, but yeah, it's like I feel like this would be a two-way street. I don't know, because movie, basically. But we see that the agents and the police have showed up. Mouse ends up going out in a blaze of glory. I do love the Kimbo massive Tommy guns for such a little guy. That's cool. Yeah. And one of my favorite shots of the movie is them all shuffling in a line down that wall.
Yes,
that looks
I'm so glad you
good,
brought that up.
man.
Isn't it odd
great.
I agree. Isn't it odd that a shot that is, I would say, 80% black screen, it's almost like a portrait shot, like somebody shot it on today's iPhone, is almost one of the coolest shots in the whole movie. To see Lawrence Fishburne, Keanu Reeves, like all of those people, it looks like they genuinely were like, all right, y'all, like let's crawl down this fucking wall and do this shot. Like it looks so convincing how they're all slowly shuffling down. And each one have their own style. I don't know why that's so cool to me, but it's not like each one of them are shuffling down the same way.
Dude, me and my brother used to laugh at like Trinity's one because it's so like rigid. She's,
Yeah. It almost looks like I was gonna say a Dexter's Lab drawing. I don't know why that comes to mind, but it almost just looks like the dimensions of her body almost don't look like it should be able to stretch that way. But everybody else is kind of Cypher's kind of like ruggedly going down it. You can tell Morpheus is very like an iguana. He's like very methodical with each one of his moves.
Well, it's interesting actually because Cypher's one tells you a little bit about his character. Like he's just kind of like bumbling his ass down the fucking down the shaft, and like Trinity's is like much more thought out and like more scalpel like she's thinking about it. And yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, that's cool.
Do you think that he coughed on purpose? Because it looks like Morpheus slips and knocks some shit on top of him, and that he actually might get shot by these security people.
I was thinking about that this time. I was really thinking about it this time, whether he coughed to give them up on purpose, and I don't think so.
He did.
I don't think he did either. I'm baffled that because there's one cop who just fires straight into the wall, and I'm just like, how did you miss?
Yeah. How did you miss this fucking dude?
Right, exactly. But yeah, I don't think that he coughed on purpose.
No, I don't either. And one thing I meant to mention, even when we were talking about just Cypher having this illusion that he was going to be basically blue pilled, was how does he even trust that these agents would honor their word and take him back into the Matrix? Like He is so fucking trusting to let them in. Like he throws all these things out there, and you can just tell the agent very like with a smirk on his face is like, whatever you want. Like you can tell to them it's like, it's just as easy for us to kill you than it is to plug you in and make you all those things. It always baffled me that he was so trusting to them.
I think he just really believes in the Matrix so much, like, and he really believes in like his overlords. You know what I mean? Like, but like.
Sure.
Yeah, like the agents were never going to blue pill him because I mean, Smith like orders the strike on the Sentinel strike, and like which would ultimately destroy and kill Cypher even if it had worked. So yeah.
Good point.
Right. So we see, again, we see this wall shuffle escape, which is great. My favorite part of this is Morpheus just headbutting himself through the wall. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's fucking great. That
Dude, he
is
full
so
needed
fucking
like a
good.
charge up for that shit, man. Like he charged his full on like ability bar before he went out there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And this great fight ensues. Personally, I think my favorite fight of the movie is him fighting the agent, and only because I love seeing Morpheus give it like 110% of like he like puts his hand on the floor and like like double kicks him and like jumps up in the corner. Like I love it because he is really fighting for his life, and he's still getting the shit rocked out of him. Like it shows you how formidable the agents are, and like Smith just picking himself up off the floor,
It's
just
so
like,
cool.
oh man, I love it.
The like watching this fight, like I'm like thinking, right? I'm like, there must be people plugged into the Matrix like Morpheus who have probably known that the Matrix is the Matrix for a long time, because some people are able to like bend the physics a little bit, like, you know what I mean, like the way he's able to do sort of like handstands on like one hand and like able to do like kicks and stuff like that. Like some of them like are physically not possible in the real world. So yeah, you know, I was kind of wondering, I'm like, what? So why can Neo do some of the game breaking, Matrix breaking stuff, and why can Morpheus do some of the Matrix breaking stuff, but he's not considered to be like the one? And I think it just comes down to, I think Morpheus has just been unplugged for a long time, and he knows that the Matrix is the Matrix, and some of the physics can be fucked with.
Right, yeah, but he doesn't have the potential to like just break
Block
the
bullets.
ceiling,
Yeah.
like right.
Several other people in the Matrix kind of have a little bit of like a little bit be out of reality abilities, like especially in, you get into the other ones, the second and the third ones, you see people like Naomi and a couple other people doing like, you know, not Neo-esque stuff, but like the same thing where it's like most people shouldn't be able to jump off a wall that way. Like most people shouldn't be able to jump the gap of the building the way that Morpheus and Trinity do a few times throughout the movie, but they can. It's like,
I'm sure like the way I see it is like, you know, people like Niobe and like people like Morpheus who have been in the resistance, or like senior leadership of the resistance, have gone through like some kind of training. Like it would baffle me if there wasn't some kind of like training happening in Zion to like kind of like, okay, here's how you can manipulate the Matrix, and here's how you can pull off these crazy moves that you couldn't do while you were blue pilled.
Yeah, like what is that? Like in college, like if you don't have high enough scores, they'll make you like take like a fundamentals class. It's almost like fundamentals of Matrix. But we already see that. Like at one point in this, them doing the jump simulation, like they comment like nobody ever makes the first jump. So like clearly they put everybody, no matter if it's Neo or otherwise, they put them through that one to be like, you know that it's possible for you to make this jump, right? Like just letting you know, like that is a thing. Regardless if you're Neo or not. That's kind of how I always thought. But maybe Neo is just if whoever it is, whenever the one comes around, their understanding of the program is going to be so vastly superior to everybody else's that they aren't going to be viewing the rules as being bent or broken. They're going to be viewing the rules as just like what their parameters are, whereas nobody else really knows what the rules probably even are. Makes them be able to interact with it, you know, and fly around and shit, whereas everybody else is like only able to jump a gap a lot farther. That's what I've always thought about it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we get this great escape scene, this great fight scene. You know, we see them trying to get out. Cypher ends up getting split away from the group, and you know, ultimately gets sent back first, and that leads pretty much to their downfall, because without him coming back first, none of this works. You know, and he pulls the plug on APOC, he pulls the plug on Switch, which again, not like this, like that. That's such a gut wrenching moment.
Do you guys have any clue? I don't. I'm asking to make that clear ahead of time. Why Cypher calling in and mentioning that there was a car accident and like, what does that have anything to do with anything? I've always thought that that was a weird way to start that scene. Like, of course, yes, he got separated from everyone else, but I just always thought that was a weird way to start that scene. It just has nothing to do with anything. He was like, there's a car accident, a goddamn car accident. All of a sudden, boom. And then he's just like, get me out of here. And they're like, what the fuck's the car accident have to do with you escaping from that damn building 10 seconds ago?
I think he's trying to find a reason to... He's trying to find an exit point so he can get out of there first. Like that's his goal, is to exit before the other guys. And I think him kind of like splitting off from the rest of the group and calling Tank directly gives him an indication of like, okay, there's a phone like right next to me. I can get out there and get an exit first, and then, deploy the plan.
Okay.
Well, again, we get this great escape scene, this fight scene. We see them finally getting back. Cypher starts pulling the plug on everybody, which is just really like gut wrenching. And, I like his kind of impish kind of like he jumps on Morpheus's lap,
right?
And he's like, I wish I could be there just to see the look on your face. Like
him sniffing Trinity.
Yes. You do start to realize like, man, this guy really did harbor a lot of like, and some of it is kind of like, yeah, nobody knew how bad, because he has to be so vague about what the Matrix is. Nobody really knew how bad the real world was. And it's like, yeah, you did kind of omit that, man. Like he has a valid point. Like I get it. Like, no, I'm not free. I'm part of some revolution and I follow this guy everywhere he goes, and I eat the same, fucking thing. And I'm dressed like I'm in a Fallout game. Like, Jesus Christ, dude, I just want to go back to the way things were. Especially like if you're on the front lines and you're fighting like that all the time, that's got to get fucking old after a while. Like, okay, dude, I just want to, let me go
constantly getting your ass kicked, right?
Yeah. Well, what I'd love is if they plug Cypher back in and he's Ralphie from The Sopranos. Like, that's his Matrix. Like,
dude, like they pre-programmed the fucking mole on Jenny's butt joke.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get him killed.
Does Sopranos get brought up in every episode?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much,
yeah. It's more rare that it doesn't get brought up. But this is a great scene, and it's such a gut wrenching scene to see everybody die, and just him gloat in it is just man, it's the fucking worst. Like, just to see him kind of like rub their faces in it, and I love him getting his comeuppance of like shooting Tank and Dozer, and then as he's saying it, he's like, you'd have to be a real miracle to stop me right now. Right. Somebody would have to come back from the dead. He fucking pops up.
That's specifically, he says that about Neo, right? Because he turns his sights on Neo and he's like, okay, well, if the prophecy is true, then I'm not going to pull this plug. And that like starts to give you an indication of like, oh, hold on, maybe the Oracle was wrong, or she fed him incorrect information.
Right. Yeah. I like the fact that it's almost a confirmation of the prophecy itself. Like, just the fact that, did he take too long gloating and his villainous ways, or was this just all part of like the plan? But we see, that Tank ends up killing Cypher and is able to bring back Trinity and Neo. This actor, have you heard about, like, he had a major falling out with this like franchise, the guy that plays Tank. Like, I think he wanted like a crazy amount of money to come back, and then like I don't know, I just know he had a pretty contentious relationship with either the Watchowskis or Warner Brothers or something like it. That's why he doesn't. Is he recast in the Reloaded and stuff? Or is he even brought back?
Yeah, he's not recast, but keep going, Zahab. Yeah.
Oh, well, he filed a lawsuit in 2003 saying that Warner Brothers was in breach of a verbal agreement, and then later a contract to continue his character in the film's two sequels. The actor was offered a total of $250,000 to appear in Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. He claimed he was owed twice that amount in addition to bonuses and guarantees he would be invited to press junkets and premieres. When the Wachowskis rejected his demands, Chong is the actor's name, Chong was arrested in October 2000 for allegedly making threatening phone calls to the filmmakers. In his suit, Chong claimed he had since been blackballed from Hollywood and blamed the Matrix creators and Warner Brothers for branding him, quote, a terrorist. Damn.
Jesus. What a idea! I knew it was contentious, but that was putting it lightly.
Well, dude,
so you're in
2018,
you're one of the most influential sci-fi movies ever, and then that's just the end of it. Keep going. I'm fascinated by this.
Oh no, I'm just saying. Like in 2018, he released a documentary called "quote The Marcus Chong Story" on his YouTube channels, detailing his life and the issues he's faced working with actor C. Thomas Howell on the direct-to-video movie Pure Danger and during production of The Matrix. Okay. It kind of sucks because I really, really like Tank in this movie.
Yep.
No, I think he's great.
I hate that he doesn't show up in the second one. Had no idea that there was that much type of like back drama behind it. Hate that when that's the case, no matter what, you know.
Well, I mean, look, he really bounced back because he was in the 2005 film The Crow, Wicked Prayer.
Ooh.
The Crow sequel, dude. The third Crow sequel.
I didn't know
I've
there's
seen
even
that
a
one.
third one, let alone a second one.
Oh, there's a fourth one. There's like the Crow 2, and then there's the third one, and then there's like Revelations or something.
Dude, this one stars Edward Furlong, Tara Reid, Emmanuel Creaky, Dennis Hopper, Danny Trejo. Are you serious?
Yeah, I think that's the third one. The second one has a French guy as the Crow, but basically we get this scene with the capture of Morpheus, and he informs Morpheus as he's tied up that the first Matrix was designed as a utopia engineered to make everyone happy, but it was a disaster, and they wouldn't accept the program. An entire crops were lost. Some believed.
Awesome.
And
such an awesome idea that our primal instincts would reject the nature of a utopia because we're just so used to violence.
Mm-hmm. And basically he just says that, but I believe as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. The perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from, which is why the Matrix was redesigned. And as we find later on, this is like the sixth iteration of it. He compares humans to dinosaurs and that the evolution is taking hold. And by now they figured out that Cypher has failed. Something's up. The fact that not everybody's dead, something is going on. And back on the Nebuchadnezzar, like I forgot about this when they're going to pull the plug on Morpheus because they're like, yeah, he has like vital information. Like we can't let him fall into the hands of the agents and the Sentinels and stuff. Like that'll be game over for Zion. Because each of the ship's captains know them, I think is the deal.
They have codes to Zion's security mainframe.
Right. But I like this. I like this kind of this back and forth, and that Neo basically saying, I'm not the one. I'm just another guy, but like I can't just leave Morpheus out there. And I kind of like that because it's Neo being like, I'm not really concerned with that right now. Like this guy who has kind of taken me in and shown me this whole other world. I cannot just leave him out there like that to die. I like that. It kind of defies the whole, save yourself, I'll hold them back. And it's like, well, no, I'm coming back for you as well. Like I think it really kind of shows his steps towards becoming that guy that he has the confidence to be like, I know I can go in there and fucking kick ass and get him out of there.
Did we also talk about the Oracle's sort of like advice that she gave him? That you will need to save your life to save another. Oh, sorry, risk your life to save another, because that comes into play. Like we did talk about it. Yeah, sorry.
Right, because she said you're going to have to choose between you or Morpheus.
Yeah.
Trinity says she's going with him, and he says, "I finally believe in something," which is nice. I like that. It's a little. I think that it takes the action of realizing it's like, dude, people are willing to die for me like this, willing to stick their necks out and fight some of the most awful people I've ever seen in my life. People, air quotes. Then this has to mean something, especially a guy like Morpheus. Like, this isn't some guy who joins a cult as soon as he blows into town. Like, he's been a part of this for years.
And unaware to Neo at this point, she's also got her own piece of prophecy secret, right? Like, there's been a couple times in the movie when she's tried to tell Neo about like what she's kind of like what the Oracle told her, but it's not immediately clear to us, and we found out at the end what she's been hiding and how she knows that Neo is the one. But yeah, like, I just wanted to mention that as well. Like, we also somewhere around here as well, we get the twist of Agent Smith wanting to escape the confines of the Matrix.
Yeah, that's right after this. Yeah,
it's so cool.
That's him talking about. I had a revelation when I was trying to classify your species.
I can smell your stink.
Yeah, AKA glasses off Smith. This is how you can always know which version of him he is. But yeah,
dude,
pretty
right.
I love that. Like, when he talks about Zion's codes, or like he talks about the key to his freedom being in Morpheus's mind, and when he says key is in your mind, he looks up at his forehead like he's expecting the answer to be written on his on his forehead, dude. I'm just like, I love it.
I love Smith saying that humanity is a virus, that they're the cure. Makes me think of Cobra, the Stallone Cobra. You're the disease, I'm the cure. Like, that's such a fucking terrible line. But I like this. I like the gloating, the confidence, the swaggered. And he's asking, why isn't the serum working? Well, whatever they injected into his neck, some kind of truth serum or something. And that's when he really kind of breaks it down. And this scene always reminds me of something I saw on YouTube years ago called "A Fart in the Matrix." Have you ever seen this? It's
yes.
hilarious.
Yes, it's I was going to bring it up earlier in the dojo scene. Because isn't it just like fart sound effects laden into every time like they move? Isn't that it?
Yeah. Well, one of them is Neo when he's strapped to the chair and he's like shaking. It's like, and then it stops and he goes, "Holy shit!"
Dude,
or whatever.
My favorite one is like when they're in the dojo and Morpheus bends down and he's like, "You think that's air you're breathing?" Dude, you know what? This is going back. I shared that to my Bebo page. Do you remember Bebo?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you guys didn't have Bebo. Bebo was like a big like social networking platform between MySpace and Facebook. There was Bebo, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't just Australian. Like, it was pretty popular.
I love Smith. My favorite one is him going, "You know what it is? The smell." And it's like in the middle of him interrogating.
Dude,
please, A Fart in the Matrix, if you guys haven't seen it.
When they do the jump program and Morpheus like takes off, it's like
it works in so many different angles.
I can't believe I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't know, A, I couldn't remember what it was called, and B, I didn't want to just be the lone wolf just being him, be like, oh yeah.
No, it's hilarious. I'm not a big fart guy, but it's so good.
I feel bad not, like being the one that it's like in a way that actually I'm surprised, not feel bad, but I'm surprised that I'm the only one that has never heard of it. But I'm actually really excited to watch it, not even being into fart humor myself.
It's so good.
It's hysterical.
I'm also not into fart humor, but man, like the sound effects are so perfect. Like when they're in the dojo and Morpheus does his like big like stretch like kind of like, pose, it's like
It's so good, man. That if you like that, look up The Farting Preacher as well. That one's hilarious. It's just kind of the same thing. It's this guy being like, "Oh Lord, I feel you in this room with me," and he's like, "Oh, right there," and it's so fucking funny. But But we're pretty much here. I mean, I would say behind the bullet dodging scene, one of the most iconic parts of this movie is the
lobby
shootout.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Talk. Somebody, please talk to me about this.
Well, it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, not weird, but it's jarring when okay, because I love the transition, right? Because you hear the music, the clanking. It sounds like iron clanking on iron, which is the music. It's like dun 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 dun, and that gets amped up right at the end of Agent Smith's sort of speech, and then it leads right into them walking through the conveyor belt, the security. And then, once they, pull out their guns and start going to town on these security guards, you kind of have, this jarring moment of, fuck, they're shooting, innocent people. But then you realize, hold on, no, they're not. They're shooting programs. They're shooting, lines of code. You know what I mean? Especially, watching this movie, 25 years later when, movies have been... where gun violence in movies has been kind of, redefined a little bit. It's been... reapproached in terms of we can't really have our protagonists straight up shooting innocent security guards and innocent police kind of thing, but in this, when you're oh, hold on, they're just honestly they're just shooting lines of code. That's just how they're deleting these people.
But I always wondered that. Are they shooting lines of code here, or are these real people that are employed to work for these for this agency? And if that's the case, I always thought it was kind of a brutal, it's either these machines kill all of us, or I kill this 24 group of people that are probably plugged in somewhere several hundred miles away. And really killed them at the expense of making sure that it's which one is actually occurring here is what I always kind of wondered. I always thought it was real people. I never thought it was programs.
The question, well, that would come down to what would happen if you die in one of your pods, not in while plugged into the Matrix, but if you died while being plugged into one of those farmed pods. What happens there? You know what I mean?
It's fertilizer for the next batch of because when he's narrating, he talks about they're taking dead bodies and then that's what's filling up the baby in the tube that they basically recycle. Dead when you die, that's what happened. Your body just gets cycled into the lube for the next fetus. Basically,
the body can't live without the mind, kind of thing.
So this isn't the Matrix's sort of security system. You know what I mean? Or is it?
I personally took this as these are just other people in pods. That's their job.
So they are killing people. I take
like,
back everything that I said.
Why? Yeah, and that makes it pretty sick, right? Like they're unapologetically just killing like 6 security guards that are not in full body armor, by the way, that are at the security checkpoint,
yeah,
right? And then the actual full SWAT team. But to me, the people in that building and the police officers in the building, they're all the same people. They're just plugged in, and that's their career inside the Matrix.
Oh, that's
just like the homeless guy.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I thought that this was like the Matrix's sort of like defense mechanism. You know what I mean? Like the agents are kind of like the Matrix's sort of like internal security program. Kind of like the what is it, like fucking McAfee fucking antivirus software.
But what's to stop them from plugging in anywhere, I guess, or like making anybody spawn somewhere and then taking over that person? Like, I guess I always thought that was just, I guess, a little bit of a storyline safeguard to ensure that they're not always everywhere. Like, there's a little bit, like, you can get in the Matrix and get away from them for a little while. It's not like they're just fucking everywhere. But yes, I always thought they were real people.
This kind of gets to my existential question or existential problem that I had with this movie concept, but I kind of like chuck it aside because it's a movie. What is stopping the machines who created and programmed the Matrix from like finding these guys? Like, you know what I mean? Why does an agent need to physically embody someone and look at them with their own eyes to find someone? Why doesn't the computer program, being a computer program, just literally find these guys and just like, I don't know, squash them inside a wall or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like the physics of it all. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I agree. Like,
yeah,
I think how are they able to close his mouth earlier and not, like you said, like just like where does their power end at the end of it? We know there can only be one of them in the beginning. Like in the second movie or whatever, you learn that he learns how to multiply or whatever. But so it's like he's not at the extent of his powers yet. If you want to like put it on a scale, either way though, yeah, always wondered. I don't know. It's because movie is movie, I guess. Really, at the end of the day, right? Like,
yeah,
they can't solve every single problem like that.
Right. Well, and I think the same thing applies for the agents and stuff too. Is like you are a program in the Matrix. Like you have limitations as well. And it's like as time goes on, it seems like the agent program and Neo kind of gain more powers and end up kind of being able to push the barriers around a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is one of those movies that when you start getting that high of a concept, there's always huge loopholes and like Infinity War. It's like, why doesn't Thanos just make more resources? You know, and it's like, oh man, it's such a simple thing, like that kind of, you know, ruins the conflict of it. But it's like, that's the character choices. This is how they're choosing to go about it. That's the whole point to me, is that it's like they could do it the easy way, but it's like, but this is the flaw of this, you know, character or this program or this whatever, is that this is how they're choosing to go about it. But I mean, that's my personal headcanon.
What an incredible action sequence though, man. Like this is the music is a bit dated, but like I mean the slow dude, I love the way the gunfire sounds. Like every time they pull out a new weapon, it's a new sound. Like, you know what I mean? When he's walking down and he's got like the dual action fucking dual wielding those like guns, and I'm like, oh, it sounds so good, dude. It sounds so good. Trinity going up behind that guy, kicking the shotgun over his head. Oh,
the most dope part of this whole scene, I think, and I brought this up earlier, I still will say that I think they give her character some of the coolest choreography across this movie and maybe some of the other ones. And this is one of them. Her kicking that shotgun behind the dude, and yeah, that's like burned into my brain. And when we started about
absolutely,
you start talking about like what a scene. I was like, man, like which one? There's so many. Like Zoe had brought this up earlier. There's like almost like if this were a play, there's like 20 minutes where Morpheus just basically gets up on a stool and there's a spotlight on him and he's like in the beginning. You know, it's like he has this huge juxtaposition. Dude, the end of this movie is action scene after action scene after action scene, and they're all somewhat like they're all kind of like different, right? Like none of them are all perfectly copy paste. It's like you got the lobby scene where it's like Neo and Trinity, and then you got the whole helicopter bullshit they got to figure out. And then when Morpheus gets involved in the whole mix and they're trying to get him out of there, the subway fight scene, like there's just
and then the hotel,
dude, and each one of those have their own distinct moments. It's like it's like, yeah, none of them. It's
breathless. The last half an hour of this movie is absolutely breathless.
Yeah, I love the tone that it takes, and it doesn't feel like any of those fight scenes are like void of character. You can pick something out of each one of them that's like, oh, that is actually a pretty sick part of it. Yeah, love how this just ends with them having come in such a simple mannerism, and you mentioning like that metal on metal percussion that's just crescendoing and like really building it up, and then dead silence as they like their boots scuff across some dusty office like granite or whatever marble floor, and the like, you know, the elevator door shutting and the column falling off. Dude, yeah. Such a great fucking scene.
They set up to go up the elevator cable, but then like kind of like intercut between this is Agent Smith being found out by the other two agents, and like they kind of come in like to tell them that like they're here, kind of thing. But what kind of gets me is like one of the agents goes like kind of like finds Smith, sort of like, you know, got his hands on like Morpheus' face, and he goes, "What were you doing?"
I love that.
Right.
And for me, it's a little bit like, how does this computer program not know what it is doing? You know what? Like, I just in my mind, I'm just like, these agents are all kind of like this defense system for the Matrix, or they're like this offensive system for the Matrix, right? They're like kind of like a search and destroy sort of like feature for the Matrix. They're like a program. So it's like this one, like this is how I kind of like resolve it. This one program who is now corrupted has kind of like shielded itself from the outside Matrix, if that makes sense, like from the other agents, and that's how he's able to have these conversations.
I think it's a bit like iRobot. You know, there's that one robot that actually kind of splits off.
Sonny.
And like, not necessarily that these guys are all clones of each other, or else I feel like they would look exactly the same. But I think each one of them are like, maybe each one of them is their own program, like multiplied however many times, but they are their own entities as well. Like they can, kind of make their own decisions or not, like kind of thing. But this incredible, like, again, like Danny said, which shootout do you pick? Which fight do you pick? And I mean, the one that is, I think, still, and the bulletproof, the bullet time thing, it still looks really fucking good. And I love, he immediately pulls those guns out, and then, that fails. So he just does like the bullet time thing. But right after that, he goes, Trinity, help, or whatever. I don't know why that has always made me laugh.
The explosion of the elevator going down to the lobby. I love all the slow motion in there. So this is the one that doesn't work for me. Like the door, kind of like the elevator door, like barreling towards.
Oh yeah.
But also, if you look at the pillars, they're all intact. Like all of the pillars are intact. Yeah, that's like great. I mean, there's debris on the ground, but like the pillars are all just like perfect.
Dude, the CGI that doesn't do it for me is there is no spoon, and then he shoots the elevator, and they're holding on to each other onto the elevator line as like the whole shaft is going around them. Right as that explosion happens, to me that just looks so fucking cheesy. Them holding onto the elevator cord while like they're going through the shaft. To me, I don't know why.
You can't win them all. You can't win them all.
Right.
And that's why I hate this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the bullet time, right? I mean, this is the
iconic
moment. Yeah, I mean,
how many times has this been cited in other shit you guys have seen?
120 cameras set up around him, wow. All firing within like less than a second of each other. There's like obviously some CG that's like mixed in there with some wire work, but again, most of it done in camera and practically, which is crazy.
You ever seen the raw footage of him actually shooting this? It only takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's imagine your feet being planted to the ground like you're Michael Jackson in Smooth Criminal about to do that move where you go down, but he goes backwards, and it's basically a shot of Keanu Reeves almost throwing his back out now that I think about it, but it's basically just him flying backwards all in a matter of like a second. It is incredible to think about. So how do you think that conversation would have gone where they're like, dude, I have an incredible idea for this shot. You know how you usually give me like 3-4 cameras max for production? Can I borrow like 120 for like an afternoon? Like I only need 1 second of footage.
There's still cameras, which is wild. It's not like so we see things in 24 frames or to like 24 like frames per second. That's a normal movie. But if you have 120 of them, and you take each camera, if you take each shot less than like a second in between, then you can probably get like 70 or 80 shots per second sort of thing. So it's like do you see what I'm getting at? It's not film like that they're shooting.
I get what you're saying. Stills. It's just a bunch of pictures put together all really fast.
It's like
fucking nerds.
I love that
a
kind
flip
of shit
book.
though.
It's like a flip book.
It was just a math problem to them at the end of the day. Instead of them having a film take 24 frames every single second. They just manually took 24 pictures for every second of footage they wanted.
Exactly.
And it was a math problem at the end of the day for them. I fucking love that shit. Yeah. And good call though. I there's some shots that are dated in this, but there's something about the bullets having that little wobbly effect around them. I don't know, man. I still think it works. It's good.
Like they're breaking the sound barrier or something. Like, but again, right after bullet time, Trinity with the awesome dodge this. Like,
so
just
cool.
the shot of the agent flying back is so good.
Oh, dude, his feet get lifted off the ground. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sick shot.
She gets the program from Tank of how to fly the copter. They launch a full-on assault. Lucky they don't blow fucking Morpheus away in the middle of all this. Like, it's hilarious.
Right. By the way, this was a
Morpheus,
real,
get up.
real minigun.
All the dust settles. He's just riddled with fucking holes.
Oh, shit.
So the helicopter had a real minigun side mounted to it, which was set to cycle at half its regular firing rate. So 1,500 rounds per minute.
Wait, so that was only firing
Christ.
at half of the rate that it
half
normally would
speed.
fire? That's fucking nuts.
Yep.
Man. So they unload. Again, this whole helicopter scene is so great. Morpheus being shot in the leg as he's running, him breaking the handcuffs. I love, especially the agent shooting, and he's not trying to catch. As soon as Morpheus starts running, he aimed for the middle of that wall. Like, he's already cutting him off, being ready. I love that.
It's awesome.
He's like leading his shot. I love that so much.
This is also where my favorite sound effects come in. Is like, again, the sound of the Desert Eagles.
Yeah. So fucking loud. And like, again, the production on this is massive because that's a very real helicopter being flown around a very real downtown area
over
with two people
Sydney
hanging from
City.
it.
It's fucking wild.
Right.
What do you guys think of this?
That is absolutely huge.
What do you guys think of the shot as like contender of one of the best of the movie, of the one that's down looking up in slow-mo of the bullets falling down, and you see the propeller of the helicopter slowly moving?
Yeah.
Beautiful. It might there's another one that rivals it, is like obviously the iconic one of like Keanu jumping off the helicopter to meet Morpheus in the air. Like, that's another one as well. And another one of my favorites comes like right here as well, when the helicopter's about to crash, and like it's about to crash into the building, and Neo jumps off the building, and he's holding the rope, but in the background you can see the helicopter just spiraling down. Oh, it's awesome.
Yes. Well, and I love the communication basically between them of like, he grabs the rope and it's not, and at first you're like, is this motherfucker going to try to catch a fucking helicopter? Like, Jesus Christ. And then Trinity shoots the thing, and I love that. That is just teamwork to a T. Like, that is perfect.
Master Chief moment, like 1,000% to me is Trinity like thinking to be like, if I'm gonna have any chance of surviving this, it's gonna be that maybe somebody thought to hold on to this, and she makes that decision within like a millisecond. And while that shit's sideways going, like, you know, just imagine somebody in a helicopter that's basically on its side going off the rails, like grabbing onto a chain and shooting something off like that. It's sick. I love that moment.
But the thing is, like, and isn't this why they think that he is the one? Because there is no communication between them. Like they didn't.
Tank's convinced here. Tank's convinced at this
Tank
point.
is 100% convinced that he is the one, and I think that's because he, I don't know, maybe he foresaw that she was going to do this, or you know what I mean? Because like they don't communicate. You know what I mean? Like they don't tell each other that she's going to grab the rope.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things that I think it's just like showing how much trust she's put in Neo, and also how far Neo has come with just that tactile kind of like teamwork and thinking and stuff.
Amazing explosion. But like you can see the Sydney Centerpoint Tower in the background, but whatever.
Is this movie shot in Sydney? No, I
had no idea. No.
I thought it was commendable. That
hey, let me have it, bitches. Let me have it. Oh, by the way, this is the second movie in a row that has a minigun in it that we've covered. Last one being Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is pretty cool.
Nice. I think it's commendable.
Chalk that up to a record of 2.
I think it's commendable all the people that died in this and the buildings that they sacrificed to get that helicopter shot is worth it. Dude, it's going to go down in history.
Yeah. Yeah, all those people's lives just for that incredible, like the helicopter hits the building and it's like it just ripples through the whole fucking thing.
They were cleaning up glass in the streets of Sydney for fucking weeks, but it was worth it.
Yeah. And like you said, they have this moment of everybody kind of starting to realize, okay, yeah, he is the one. You know, like you said, Tank kind of buys into it, and Morpheus is telling him the Oracle told you what you needed to hear. That's all. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path, which I like. At first, that kind of sounds, I'll be honest, like a bullshit line. But then I like the fact that there's this kind of just if you know you're the one, then there's no work into it. But
right.
if you're doing the work, you're becoming this person.
It's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, like if he knew about the prophecy, then there's no, like, some people would just like take a back seat and be like, oh, my path is all laid out for me, I don't need to do anything. But yeah, if you thought that you weren't the one, then maybe you'll work a little bit harder for it.
Right. Exactly. And we see them finally getting back. We get Morpheus and Trinity back, but not Neo. I love the bullet just barely misses her and hits the phone. It's like, oh no, God damn it. And another absolutely incredible fight scene. Just
love this.
Straight out of a Western. You even have the tumbleweed in the form of the newspaper like flowing through them. And again, another very I hate to keep using this word, but iconic shot of them locking wrists and like spinning together in the middle of the hallway is really, really, really good. And I think this is a great final little area for them, like this this train station, I guess. This
there's a moment here when Neo kind of like slams Agent Smith into the ceiling, and the shot where that happens, so Neo is actually the stuntman, and it's Chad Stahelski who directed the John Wick films. He got really injured when he did that. He got a couple of broken ribs. He broke both of his knees, and he dislocated his shoulder.
Damn,
dude. He talked about this on I think Rogan.
What stunt?
So the one where he like kind of like lifts Smith up and like smashes him into the ceiling of the tunnel there.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So,
but yeah, it's just crazy that like, they ended up working together like a decade later, which is awesome.
So the shot of Neo's stuntman, which is really Chad Stahelski, hitting the ceiling is actually him truly like breaking 3 or 4 things in his body.
No, I think it's Neo, because isn't it Neo lifting? It's the other way. It's Neo lifting Smith and smashing him into the ceiling. And it's that lift.
But both, the lift did it. I was going to say both their bodies hitting the ceiling looks jarring. So that's why I was like, man, if something would have broke their bones, it would have been like maybe the ceiling, but I don't have that part in front of me anymore. I would have to go back and rewind it and find it. But
how badass is Neo like knocking the dust off of him and giving oh man.
Always thought that was
sick. This is also my favorite use of the music, man. Like I said, like when dude, when Smith does that like one punch and it stays on Smith's face and he kind of like does like gets up and grits down, and I'm like, yes, I love it. Just him like advancing on him. It's so good.
An incredible fight scene. My favorite part has to be Neo getting the punch right to his face and then sticking his fingers out like getting him in the throat.
Have you seen the edit of like I need to link it to you, but there's an edit of this fight, and literally like it's like every couple fights like someone like edits that in and like he keeps doing it. He keeps
I like this fight a lot, though. I like him. Like you said, he smashes him into the fucking ceiling and leaves him for dead on that train. Oh Jesus, yeah, that is a brutal. Like looking back at it, it's like, yeah, I could see that fucking some shit up.
Do you feel
and
the
ultimately
helplessness of like him going through this arduous fucking fight? Like clearly the whole movie kind of leads up to it. And the second that he dies, that subway stops and he's immediately right in
Yeah.
front of him again at 100% health. You're just like, oh my God, you know, just that
That
feeling of
is-
helplessness that you would
That is
never
also
win.
one of my favorite shots is when he does the backflip off onto the platform. And Smith's got his outstretched hand. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and I love as much as I love this fight. I really appreciate the fact that they brought in another threat in the form of the Sentinels, and now there's this race for time that it's like, okay, it's not just, oh, you've got to fight him and get out. You've got to do it before we've got to set off this EMP that may or may not kill you. But the him running and getting like directions and stuff like that, I love so much. And the moment he goes into that door and it's just like right in his chest,
So
it
good.
is such a gut. Oh man, your gut drops. It is because the sound design. I'm pretty sure it's like reverbed or muffled or
It
something.
has
I
to
can't
be.
remember.
It has to be.
Yeah, it's like slow mode
Yeah.
almost. It's like, and you're like, holy shit. And just to be right there at the end and to, like you said, this arduous fucking battle. And then on top of that, now the Nebuchadnezzar is getting attacked by these sentinels, and he's running, and he's right there at the end. And there's basically this like parkour
Right.
going on.
They can't use the EMP because then they can't get him
Right.
out.
Yes, and but you can hear a pin drop when he shoots him in the chest, and you're like, oh, that's gotta suck. And then he just, and you're like, oh my god, like,
And it's even more heartbreaking when you see Morpheus's face and he's like, it can't be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's
Right.
just so, it shatters his faith. Like, this is everything that he's like been like looking forward to.
What
yeah.
do you guys think
Well, and
about
I mean,
him being brought back to life? Sorry, Colin. By
I was just about to. No. You literally took the words out of my
what
mouth.
do you guys think about this entire movie hinging on him being brought back by that kiss?
Yes. So this is where the movie doesn't lose me, but this is the biggest problem I have with this movie is that, and it's so funny, like,
It's the power of love.
yeah. So Steph said this as well. She's like, you don't know him. You know what I mean? Like she's known him for like what, like a month.
She tongues him though. She tongues him back to life.
But it's like I don't think this movie does enough heavy lifting with the relationship or with Neo and Trinity's relationship or intimacy or whatever.
Right. That feels very forced
to make me
Yeah.
believe that this is real. Like, you know what I mean? And this the chicken and the egg thing doesn't work here because just because she's meant to fall in love with him because of the prophecy.
That's a plot armor, basically.
Yeah, but it's still not believable because I don't think she's known him long enough. Yes, she's watched him and stuff like that, but like doesn't mean you're in love with him. I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't buy it. But I think the later movies do a good job of really fleshing out this relationship. I think this one on its own to earn this ending doesn't.
I love how I can
Well,
tell how serious Zohib is getting when he picks up a pen to start describing what he's talking about. I know that's when he's like really got it. He's got his whole fucking argument laid out, like beginning, middle, end, like, you know. But
It was in my notes.
So fucking happy that I wasn't the only one that picked that up because even going back and thinking about this ever since we all decided to cover this. And I think you guys do it too, right? Like before you even watch the movie, you start replaying it in your brain, like, "Ooh, can't wait to talk about that. Can't wait to talk about what happened at that part." I honestly tripped when I got to the end, and I thought, God, I've seen this movie a million times. Like, how does it end? Like he dies but comes back to life. I can't wait to rewatch this later and be like, "What's up with that?" And then I just replayed it like 3 times over and over again. Damn it, it's him getting kissed and a bunch of sparks going everywhere. That's what brings him back. Damn it, I forgot that's how like simple of writing it was. Thought I wasn't the only one that was somewhat bothered by that. So, Colin, did you get everything out you had to say about that, or are you basically on the same page?
Yeah. I think that there's something that's, again, it's the you win because of the power of love kind of thing, and it's like that always bores the shit out of me when it comes to movies.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's like the power of friendship kind of thing, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but there's worse sins in movies, I guess, and it's like I can let it slide because it is such a like high concept visual movie, that I'm not, I don't really come to the Matrix for like the storyline, like I have a lot more fun just watching the punches and the kicks and seeing like, oh, this was incredible for 1999. Like I appreciate it almost from like a film historical standpoint, and the plot is just kind of like, yeah, that doesn't really bother me. Like, it's almost something like Princess Bride, where it's like, yeah, but it's a comedy, like, and it's this very, there's a princess and a prince, and and this guy goes to save her, and there's a giant, and blah blah blah, like a six-fingered man, like blah blah blah. But it's funny, like the story is the vehicle that takes us there. But then all this aesthetic, this green and black leather, and this green text and line of code, like all of that is the furnishings, and that's what I really really like. This movie's a lot of like style over substance for me, but I'm fine with that because it has hella good style. Like it is a very stylistic movie. And we're kind of wrapping up. I mean, here at the end, basically Neo comes back from the power of love. They end up firing the EMP, and that's basically the movie, baby. We get Neo flying at the end. That was pretty
Rage
fucking
Against
crazy.
the Machine.
Yeah.
They also stops the bullets, which is pretty awesome. Love that shit. Especially
I mean,
like
whatever.
10-year-old may love that shit.
Yeah.
No, hell yeah. It's iconic. I mean, another one of those shots that it's like, if you see a trailer that's like, coming to a movie theater or whatever, there's just a supercut of a bajillion movies that are like famous. You don't even have to think about what they are. One of them is the bullets coming towards him and him stopping them with his hands, right? It's like iconic shot.
Absolutely.
But y'all, we finally fucking covered The Matrix. Can you believe it?
Crazy, man.
I think we've been talking about doing this for a really long time, but yeah.
No, absolutely. It's been, yeah, I knew it was going to be a long one. I mean, it's kind of a longer movie, anyways, but I still think that it's high time that we did it. And, I don't really have any closing thoughts. I just kind of want to get to listener comments if you guys are okay with that, or if you guys have anything you want to close with, by all means, go for it.
Well,
I think I'm good.
We'll do the listener comments first before we just do like final thoughts. I guess just because it's more conclusionary. I got a couple comments pulled up. I guess I'll start with Danielle Cutter. Danielle says The Matrix still kicks ass, the effects hold up, and the story still resonates. And Keanu is at his coolest. The rest of the movies have some decent parts, but they could never live up to the original. It's also got catchphrases for days. Question: what's your favorite Keanu role and your favorite Keanu movie? Mine are
Constantine. Sorry.
She says mine are Ted Logan, and Speed.
Wait, who's Ted Logan? From Bill and Ted. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, like
That's right.
Look, I'm sorry. It's gonna be John Wick for me, man. I mean, there's no getting around it.
I also really fell in love with this John Wick character as well.
Same.
I like him as John Wick. I don't have any problems with it, but there's something about him in Constantine because he never plays roles like that. Like just this guy chain smokes and he's kind of like in a morally gray area, but it's like demons and stuff. Like I like it. I like that kind of angle a lot. Was that the end of Danielle's comment?
Yeah, that was the end of Danielle's comments. I just wanted to mention Keanu in Dracula, man, and like how just he's not good in that. One of my favorite impressions is Matthew Anderson from the LSG episode, and he's like,
"But sir,
oh,
yeah." He's like, I know where the bastard sleeps." Yeah, it's a terrible accent.
Got one from Patrick. He says, "There's not much I can add about The Matrix. It's an amazing, groundbreaking movie that still holds up 25 years later. It was parodied to death in comedies for the next decade, showing just how much of a cultural impact it was. Whenever I have a moment of deja vu, I always refer to it as a glitch in the Matrix. Looking forward to the coverage." Thanks very much, Patrick.
One last thing I want to shout out with Danielle's comment is another one is John Wick and him in The Replacements. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen that movie or not.
Oh, yeah.
But
With Gene Hackman?
That got replayed a shit ton at our house, and I wasn't even into football like that. It's just a good movie.
Got one last comment from Jose Rivera. He says, I saw The Matrix on VHS the same night as I saw The Mummy. That's one hell of a double feature from Blockbuster.
Wow.
I loved it. It reminded me of a comic book in the best possible way. I know you probably talk about how amazing and groundbreaking the movie was because it had a significant impact in the film industry, but I want to go back to things I thought about when I first watched the movie. We take for granted that Neo is the one. It seems obvious that that's where the story was always going to go, but I remember loving the ambiguity and roller coaster it was to get there. First he might be the one, then he's told he's not the one, then he starts to believe he might, and then he is the one. They play with our expectations until the bitter end. I also love how there's a mix of martial arts, gunplay, and everything that has this tactile feel. The outfits in the sequels look too slick and polished, gunplay took a back seat, and the martial arts and philosophy took center stage. You don't get cool shots like Neo spinning around, dual-wielding twin pistols with his coattails flapping in the wind. Instead, you get an almost monk-like cloth coat spinning unconvincingly as a CGI Neo takes on equally gummy CGI Agent Smiths.
Gummy.
And I know
I love it.
And I know he's talking about the Burly Brawl, man. It's so goofy looking.
I know exactly what you meant. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He says, and I know I bang on about film scores, but Don Davis knocks out of the park with this one. He used a lot of horns for tensions and for triumph. Tell me you don't get chills when you first heard the score swell when Neo realized he was the one. We love to boost the soundtracks with licensed music, but much like The Crow, I'm going to the score more times than not. If I had a complaint, I'd say it reminded me a little too much of Dark City. It makes sense as they came out around the same time and share similar themes. The Matrix took some of the spotlight away from that movie, but watch it again. The director's cut of Dark City might be good to do somewhere down the line. I've never seen Dark City, by the way.
I bought it, but I still haven't watched it. That's the same guy who directed The Crow. Alex
Proyas, yeah. He also did Gods of Egypt, which is a fucking dumpster fire. But he did iRobot.
Thank you guys for the comments.
Oh, I love it.
Did he? I had no idea. Yeah. That's not a bad movie. Thank you guys for the comments. Thank you guys very much. I guess getting into final thoughts. I mean, I enjoyed it. I always have a lot of fun when I watch this. It's not something I need to see all the time. But yeah, I had fun.
Great movie, super iconic, super well made. I love that it makes me think about destiny and what we're supposed to do and where we're supposed to end up and free will. Yeah, man, there's not really that much more to say. It's been 3.5 hours. This was awesome. Had a great time, man.
Jaws are tired from the suckfest.
I hated it. No, fantastic, man. Yeah. Thanks everybody for sticking in this long. As I always say to my wife.
Yeah, thank you guys. We're excited to finally have this one in the bag, and then maybe at some point knock out the second and the third one. No, I think
the next episode is going to be our coverage of the Matrix. So we're going to be listening to this podcast and then covering that in our thoughts. So if you thought that wasn't Inception-y enough.
Yeah, we'll break down we'll have a podcast about the podcast. We'll break it down and get really meta.
No, I had a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say again, reiterate what Danny said. Thanks to anybody who stayed all the way to the end. We had an absolute blast covering this. I'm sure we'll probably dip our toe back into this universe at some point, but for now, this is our first kind of foray into it, and I enjoyed it, and I think we definitely covered the best Matrix movie already. So I'm happy. I'm happy to have done that, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Socials are in the show notes, and we will see you next time. Bye.